Hello everyone and welcome to Elephino Open number 10. I am Elephino. Just a brief introduction on how this tournament works is basically there's a 256 players that we start with, and they play through a single elimination bracket until we get all the way down to the final four, which is what we're about to cast here right now. All rounds are best of 5 conquest with a ban. So basically what that means is that every player selects 4 classes that he or she would like to use, and then their opponent is able to ban one of them. So they were left with 3 eligible classes, and then it's a best of 5 out of those 3 remaining classes. So, enough of the preliminaries. We are getting ready to start our first semifinals match, which will be between Birdosaurus and the Sudoka, or just Sudoka as his battle tag is. So let me go ahead and get these guys to get started, and then we will get you guys into the action. So a very short introduction there, and let's get this thing rolling. We're trying to start as close to on time as we can, so hopefully. Let me go ahead and show you the bracket real quick first. We're actually going to start with this bottom semifinals match, Birdosaurus versus Sudoka. Due to time restraints, the other semifinals match was not quite ready yet, so we're just going to start with this one first. No big deal. And then we'll get ahead and we'll do the other one after this. So they should be getting ready to go. You will be seeing Sudoka on the bottom of your screen, and Birdosaurus will be on the top of your screen. Birdosaurus will be playing Mage, Paladin, and Rogue, whereas Sudoka will be playing Hunter, Paladin, and Warlock. You don't have to remember that. The classes will be on the left side of your screen. I'll try to keep that updated with check marks to signify which class has won a game already. But if I forget, bear with me, and I'll try to keep it updated as much as possible. They should be getting started here any second now. They're preparing to battle friends, so this should be just another quick second here while they get into the action. You can see the prizes on the left side of your screen. This is a officially sanctioned BlizzCon tournament, so that's what the points represent. So first place 3 points, second place 2 points, and third and fourth place will each get 1 point in the BlizzCon standings. Okay, looks like they're getting ready to start, so let's get you guys in there. Let me go ahead and flip over Birdosaurus's cards if I can. There we go. Okay, so it looks like Sudoka decided to open up with a Paladin, while Birdosaurus went with his Rogue. Both very strong classes. Sudoka looks like he has a really nice starting hand, whereas Birdosaurus is going to have to find some cards to play in these opening turns, so let's see if he can hang in there. If Sudoka looks like he's got a hand that can really snowball the board and punish Birdosaurus for a slow start, so we'll keep an eye on that for sure. It's like he's debating whether he wanted to coin out one of those 2 drops or just start with the Secret Keeper. Now he's debating on coining out one of the secrets. I assume he will. Buffs up his Secret Keeper, so now it no longer dies to backstab, so that's pretty important. It would die to backstab and weapon, though. Assuming this wasn't Noble Sacrifice, I should have said, because now obviously the Noble Sacrifice will leave that weapon charged, so that secret kept his Secret Keeper alive in a couple of ways. It's a real strong play from Sudoka. Birdosaurus kind of sniffing out that Noble Sacrifice. The 2 most common secrets are Noble Sacrifice and Avenge, so if your opponent plays just one, especially early, odds are it's one of those 2, so he's trying to keep those contain before you can get too many secrets on board. That's the biggest threat of Mysterious Challenger, is that they're not that the secrets are by themselves very strong, but when you are able to get them all out of your hand at one time for essentially free, then that's what allows it to snowball the board and just become overwhelming. But if you can pick them off one at a time, they're a little bit more manageable. So it looks like he's just going to pop off that Divine Shield, setting up for some sort of clear. He doesn't have a Blade Flurry in hand, but he does have a Fan of Knives, so potentially next turn he could Fan of Knives and swing again to kill the mini-bot, but Sudaka's not really slowing down on this other end here. He's got the Knife Juggler. This could be a pretty good competitive spirit that will, it appears, fall on 2 minions. It looks like Bertosaurus is going face, so maybe expecting the second Noble Sacrifice. And then he's just going to set up his Violet Teacher. So the competitive spirit, I was wrong, goes off on all 3. And now Sudaka, that was a pretty good pickup in the Cog Hammer. He can toss that out first and very easily kill this Violet Teacher no matter where it falls. Looks like he's going to start with the Repentance. Gonna see what happens from there. And then just finish off that Violet Teacher and send the rest to the face. So, like I said, Sudaka had a really nice start and was able to punish Bertosaurus thus far for having a fairly slow start. But fortunately for Bertosaurus, he's starting to get into some hands that he can play, but some cards that he can play, rather. But with that Repentance, it's going to shrink that Sludge Belcher down to a much manageable size, and the Juggle even hits. So this is going to be game 1 going to Sudaka and his Paladin. So congratulations to Sudaka. Going to take game 1 very nicely. And a really snowball effect that Paladin can have. And Rogue did not have the early answers that they're looking for in that matchup. So that was unfortunate for Bertosaurus. So we'll see what he decides to go with. Since this is Conquest format, the losing class can be played immediately again. However, the winning class has to be changed. So, that being said, Bertosaurus could have stuck with his Rogue, but Sudaka had to change from the Paladin. So, Bertosaurus, going to go ahead and switch anyway. He's going to run with the Mage here in game 2. While Sudaka gonna throw out the Warlock here. See how that works for him. It's kind of hard to tell from this hand what Sudaka is. It could be Zoo or more of the Handlock / Reno. Bertosaurus, though, is undoubtedly running a Freeze Mage variation. Sudaka looking, his hand's looking more and more like a Zoo hand. And he's got another pretty good start. He's got a couple options here on turn 2 with the Egg or the Peddler. If he wants to throw out the Egg now, he can buff it with the Cleric next turn. Or he could definitely go with the Dark Peddler because that will allow him to play the Imp King boss on turn 3, which is a really, really strong 3-drop in this game. Really annoying to deal with. Bertosaurus, not a terrible hand though. He has the early minion that contests Sudaka's minion, and it's also going to draw him a card. So he's got some early card draw, which is really huge for the Freeze Mage to cycle through as many cards as he can. So it looks like he's going to be able to do that pretty effectively. Now Sudaka probably knows that it's Freeze Mage just off of that one card. So we'll see how he decides to play this matchup. He could throw the Voidwalker out there to contest the Loot Hoarder and keep pressure on the board. But as stated earlier, that Imp King boss is a really strong 3-drop, so we'll see how much he values the 2/2 on the board. Eventually he's going to want to have that Nerubian egg to soak up an AoE, survive an AoE. So he's just going to throw that out there now to establish that presence and be really annoying for any time Bertosaurus wants to clear the board. He'll have to deal with the 4/4 that comes out of that egg. So he's just going to throw out the Acolyte for now and not swing in. So he's going to keep his Loot Hoarder alive for now and see if Sudaka will use some resources on it. Because Bertosaurus wants to keep the game as slow as possible. So if he's forcing Sudaka to use removal on that Loot Hoarder or run the Voidwalker in himself, then that's all the better for him. By Bertosaurus running that Loot Hoarder in, it just does the attack for his opponent, which is not what you want to do ideally as the Freeze Mage. So Sudaka gonna buff that up and be able to clean the Acolyte off with just one hit, so limiting the card draw to just one off that Acolyte, so that's good for him. You don't want that to farm too many cards. We stated earlier how important it is for Freeze Mage to cycle through their deck until they get their burn and their combo. Looks like Bertosaurus is running a Pyroblast off to the, on your screen, it's off to the left there. He's already got the Alexstrasza in hand, so he's really looking for a Emperor at this point in the game. He had 10 cards, so he had to throw out the coin there to prevent him from overdrawing next turn. Not that this ping was especially important, but he didn't want to overdraw next turn, so that's why he coined and might as well ping something. So Sudaka looked like he's going really aggressive with this Lotheb. It appears he's going to try to lock out a Frost Nova Doomsayer turn from Bertosaurus, and it will do that very effectively. Bertosaurus did not have the Frost Nova, but he did pick up the Doomsayer as of this turn, so all spells being essentially locked out. Bertosaurus is going to throw down the heal bot, get a little bit of board presence, and heal himself back up to kind of slow down this game a little bit. Bertosaurus is probably a little bit relieved to see the Lotheb come out this early, because he doesn't have to worry about it in later turns when he's under a little bit more pressure. But Sudaka wanted to get the pressure on right now, so that's why he threw it out as early as he did, because he thinks he can burst his opponent down before it becomes relevant. He doesn't think he's got to wait, so we'll see how this works out for both of them. Bertosaurus finally getting a Mad Scientist out there. You really want to pull your secrets out of your deck with the Mad Scientist as opposed to drawing them. So if you're able to do that before you cycle through your deck too much and end up cycling into those secrets, that would be ideal. So we see he has one secret. Let me double check that again. I think it's a barrier. Yep, it is a barrier. So the Secret Keeper, when it dies, will undoubtedly bring out the first ice block for Bertosaurus. He also had to Ice Lance that Lotheb to slow down the game even more. So that's a little bit of burn that he gave up, but he felt under a lot of pressure because he is. So definitely probably a good play from Bertosaurus to slow down that 5 damage and not be greedy wasting it for, or waiting to use it for burn damage. So Sudaka is all in. His entire hand is on the board, but it's a pretty good board. It's fairly resilient to Blizzard and Flame Strike. So we see the Blizzard does come out. It's going to lock down everything except the 4/4 coming out of the egg. Now Sudaka, still in top deck mode, picks up the Knife Juggler and now taps into the Defender of Argus. He wants to be careful not to fill up his board too much because he wants to have board space to play stuff in case Bertosaurus has a Frost Nova, which we know he does not have at this time, but if he picks that up, he can really stall out the board. But Sudaka wants to put on the pressure. As stated earlier, he went all in really early. He's not worried about that board space at this time. He wants to get out the pressure as much as he can and force his opponent to have the answer. So that's why he did that. I'm sure he was aware of filling up his board, but he did not care. He wanted the pressure out. Unfortunately for him, Bertosaurus did have another freeze and the Doomsayer, so this Doomsayer is going to go off. It's just a matter of if Sudaka wants to get the Discover card off the Peddler now or if he wants to wait till next turn. So that will be completely up to him. He's going to go ahead and hold it. Seems to make sense. Bertosaurus, still having a block up, is going to go ahead and set his opponent down to 15. He's got a decent amount of burn in hand with the Pyroblast and the Fireball, so next turn he could Fireball and hopefully pick up the other Ice Block if somehow Sudoku is able to pop him, which we see that he is with that Doom Guard. He also looks like he's going to pick up the Soul Fire here so he can pop him again, but this is really awkward for that Doom Guard now. Because if he wants to pop him with the Doom Guard this turn, he will discard the Soul Fire. So this is curious to see what he does here. If he plans on using the Doom Guard this turn, it didn't matter what card he picked up. So it looks like he's not going to pop him here. He's just going to play out his hand. Keep the Doom Guard in reserve. That does prevent Bertosaurus from being popped last turn. So now he's just free to... He's going to use that AoE and just slam the face as opposed to using the Fireball. Wants to keep the burn just in case Sudaka's using some sort of heals, like a Reno or some variation. You never know, so might as well play it safe. Sudaka's only option is to test that secret and hope it's not an Ice Block. But we know that it is, and he was pretty sure it was too, but that was his only out. So he went for it. And now that being said, Bertosaurus is going to take game 2 and tie the series up at 1 game apiece. So well played by both sides. The Freeze Mage, being a very strong deck, was able to come out on top that time. So we'll see what these players want to switch to. Bertosaurus' Freeze Mage is locked out now, so he will have to switch to one of his other remaining classes. We'll see if he decides to go back to that Rogue or not. Looks like they're getting ready to start game 3, so let's get you guys into this action. Let me give a check mark to Bertosaurus' Mage, and the score on the left side of your screen is correct. We're tied up at 1 game apiece. So here in game 3, Bertosaurus did go back to the Rogue, and Sudaka gonna go ahead and switch to his Hunter. Looks like he's running a very aggressive, one of the face hunters. He had we saw with the Leroy Jenkins and the abusive, so generally a good plan as Hunter to hit your opponent as often as you can. Bertosaurus appears to have a much more early start this time as opposed to last time he played Rogue, so I'm sure he's a little bit relieved about that. See how he chooses to deal with this Mad Scientist. Coin SI is a really strong play. Deals with that, deals with the Mad Scientist, and establishes a 3/3 of your own, so that's one of the reasons it's really important to have Coin as Rogue. So that was fortunate for him to have that exact combination. Deals with a lot of early pressure and just a huge swing turn for the Rogue, using that Coin to set up the combo effect that many of their cards have. And now Sudaka's got to figure out what he wants to do. He's probably thinking about the Arcane Golem, but you don't really give your opponent mana this early, so more than likely he'll run something else, whether he opts for the Animal Companion or the Knife Juggler Leper Gnome. He could also toss out the Leper Gnome and Quick Shot the SI7 if he wants to play it a little bit slower, but we saw it's a very aggressive deck, so I would have been surprised if he took that path, and he didn't. So he did roll the Huffer, though. I was able to establish 4 damage to the face. Bertosaurus, expecting the explosive trap, probably. Go ahead and pop that, keep his minion alive, and is still able to clear off the Huffer with the backstab. So very clean play from him. He would have gotten the SI7 back if it was freezing trap, so he wasn't too concerned either way. Now back down to Sudaka. Let's see if he wants to try to get off the Juggler. He's going to opt for just a lot of pressure. So he is going to go with that Arcane Golem now. He's going to give his opponent 1 extra mana crystal, but that was a Violet Teacher turn anyway. So he figured his opponent would probably be playing a 4-drop regardless, and wasn't too concerned with giving him the extra mana now. Bertosaurus is able to take a slight advantage of that, so he can play the Azure Drake at this time. So he was able to capitalize on that extra mana crystal. And that allows him to capitalize even more with the Phantom Knives, able to clear off both minions thanks to the spell power of the Azure Drake. So really strong play from Bertosaurus. He has the dominant board pressure, and he's still at a reasonably healthy life total. 18 on turn 5 against the Face Hunter is not the worst case scenario, but Sudaka gonna have to keep putting on the pressure here, so he goes with that Knife Juggler Unleash. Gets some really nice juggles. He's able to clear off the SI7 and doesn't quote-unquote waste any damage going into the Azure Drake, but Bertosaurus having another really strong turn is just putting the pressure right back on Sudaka. And we'll see if he's able to handle it. That Azure Drake doing wonders for him in that spell power. So he capitalized on that as much as he could with that Azure Drake, getting that out there. He's seen that Sudaka has played very aggressive thus far, so he did not feel shy about using a decent amount of his burst damage right then and there. We'll see how Sudaka answers this. He has a decent amount of damage in his hand. It's not enough to kill him, obviously, but is it enough to kill him over 2 turns if he can draw a beast next turn? The only way he could get off the double kill command next turn is if he draws a 1-mana beast, which do exist in the form of a web spinner, for example. But it looks like he's just going to use both kill commands now and not be greedy with them. That Deadly Poison does look like it gave Bertosaurus enough damage. He might have had it earlier. I didn't do all the math. But with that Deadly Poison, he definitely has enough damage now to finish off Sudaka. And his Rogue will take Game 3 and move ahead in the series, 2-1. So congratulations to him. He was able to redeem that Rogue and get a win. So very well played by both sides, especially Bertosaurus and the Rogue, sensing how quick of a hunter, and generally hunters are more aggressive anyway. But he was able to stave off the early pressure from the hunter and come over the top with his own pressure. So really strong play for him. Unfortunately for Sudaka, he just kind of fizzled out a little bit. Having that handful of spells that late in the game is not what you want. So we'll see what they go with here in Game 4. Bertosaurus is left with only his Paladin left, so we knew what class he was going to play. Sudaka switching back over to the Warlock to give it a second chance. He feels a little bit more comfortable with this class as opposed to the Hunter, so I'm going to go ahead and get that in there first. Looks like he has a really strong hand again. Just a really nice curve. 1, 2, 3, 4 curve. He has the coin if he wants to do some variation of that. Bertosaurus, not a terrible hand of his own right. He's going to throw out the Noble Sacrifice. Will help to protect his mini-bot or knife juggler next turn. We'll see what Sudaka wants to go with here. He can coin out 1-drops, but I assume he'll keep the abusive to get more value out of it later on. Meanwhile, Bertosaurus does just toss out that knife juggler. It will be protected by the Noble Sacrifice. So Sudaka, probably expecting the Noble Sacrifice, will probably throw out the Haunted Creeper first before attacking in. And it will give his... Oh, he's going to coin out the abusive, even if he expects the Noble Sacrifice. Not a terrible play because he gets the board presence. Also gave the Knife Juggler another minion to hit to protect his Void Walker, if that was his plan. I can't say with 100% certainty what his plan was, but if that was it, then it worked out beautifully. Kept the taunt alive, helped to keep the Haunted Creeper from that, so allowed the Void Walker to soak up a swing from the Cog Hammer. And now Sudaka, as we talked about earlier on in the tournament, how strong of a minion the Imp Gang boss is on 3, so fortunately for him, he had that. It contests the board pretty nicely. The Juggles doing some work. Picks off a 1-1, but then hits the Imp Gang boss and creates another one. So Bertosaurus just taking the value trades here. Being very efficient with his minions. Forcing Sudaka to implosion the 1-health Knife Juggler. He does get a 3, so gets the average roll, so hard to be too upset about that if you're in his position. Now Sudaka debating on where he wants to attack here, if he wants to put the pressure on the face or pop off the Divine Shield from one of those mini-bots and create himself another minion. He is going to go with popping off the shield, opens him up a little bit more to Consecration, but fortunately for him, his opponent does not have Consecration. And Bertosaurus could have made the trade anyway to clear up the Consecration, so it didn't play into Consecration very heavily. Now Bertosaurus finally able to kill off the Imp Gang boss, but it got a lot of value. It created several 1-1s. I believe it was 3 of them. But Sudaka does have enough minions on board to get value out of that Gormok, so we'll see what he wants to do. Unfortunately, he cannot trade in one of those minions to pop off the Divine Shield first. That would give him the most value out of it. He's probably also a little afraid of Repentance, perhaps. Competitive Spirit and Redemption are the 2 that are alive, so killing one of those mini-bots would be really unfortunate for him because of the Redemption. He's going to want to kill one of the 1-1 first, if anything. Looks like he's just going to put on the pressure and go to the face, let the Competitive Spirit go off. And now Bertosaurus has a... they both have very, very decent, strong boards here. Bertosaurus opts for the Hero Power as opposed to throwing down the Dr. Boom there. So he wants to save that for more pressure later on. And now back down here to Sudaka. Still has the board presence for the Gormok. So now he can get a little bit more value out of that if he wants to. He is going to pop the Redemption on the 1-1, so a really nice play from him. He was able to establish the Redemption before using the Gormok and killing this off. We talked about how unfortunate it would have been for the Redemption to come on the mini-bot, so that was navigated beautifully by Sudoku. The sequencing on that was absolutely gorgeous. And really, really, really strong play from both of them. So now Bertosaurus is expecting some sort of clear from his opponent, and it happened, is now able to throw it on the Dr. Boom. Oh, I apologized. I don't know why I thought he was turn 7 last turn for him. I was talking about him not throwing down the Dr. Boom, but that was just plain wrong. It was turn 7 now, so of course he hero powered on turn 6 because that's all he had in his hands. So I misspoke there. I apologize for that. Sudoku gonna not having a super clean way to deal with this board. Looks like he's gonna set out the Nerubian egg before he pops a Boombot to hopefully get some favorable Boombot action. He does go with the Direwolf Alpha to clear off the main body of the Dr. Boom. These juggles are going to the face, so whether he wanted to or not, I'm not sure, but he did not pop any of those Boombots, and now these Boombots are going to the face. Holy cow, all the RNG is to the face right now for both players. The juggles, the Boombots, everything's hitting face. Sudaka's got to tap into another Dark Peddler, so he's got double Peddlers this turn. He's going to take the Void Walker fairly quickly off the first one. We'll see what he gets off this second one. Could take the other Void Walker, and he does kind of slow down the Tyrion just a little bit. Doesn't have enough pressure to kill the Tyrion, so we'll see what he opts for here. I imagine he'll just throw out both of those Void Walkers, because why not? And just to show off a very strong play again, he puts both of those right next to the Direwolf Alpha. Since they have taunt, he knows his opponent's going to have to get through those first. So he's going to be able to punish whatever minions attack there just a little bit more. Do a little bit more damage. So just super strong plays. Really high level plays by both players here. They are not disappointing us thus far, that's for sure. And unfortunately for Sudaka, he was... Bertosaurus had to use the True Silver, so now killing the Tyrion does destroy one charge of the True Silver, but it also creates a larger weapon, but there was no other way to deal with that, so if you gotta see the silver lining there, I suppose that was it. He's gonna clear the board off as much as he can, playing around Blessing of Kings, and just making sure that the only attack that Bertosaurus has next turn is with the weapon. So playing around any buff cards, he's going to clear the board and just establish a really dominant board. Again, placing the Void Walker right next to Direwolf Alpha. So really strong plays, forces his opponent to swing into there. Bertosaurus does have the Big Game Hunter. We'll get a little bit of value right now. And thanks to that Big Game Hunter, Sudaka no longer has lethal on board, but hold the phone. Oh, that is not quite enough. He will be one off, so he'll be forced to tap into something. Unless he can clear on board here, which he can. Ooh, but he does tap into that, and that will give him lethal. So the Power Overwhelming with the Dark Iron Dwarf is going to go ahead and give Sudaka the Game 4 victory. Sudaka with a very smart tap there, because he was able to clear the board regardless, and he would still be at enough health so that the weapon from Bertosaurus could not kill him. So he figured the 2 health there really didn't matter. He might as well tap in and take a small risk to get the lethal right then and there. Fortunately for him, it paid off, and now we are going to Game 5 in the series. It will be Bertosaurus' Paladin versus Sudaka's Hunter again. We gave the check mark to the Warlock down there. So again, the score on your screen is correct. We are tied up at 2 games apiece. Going into Game 5, the winner of this game will win the match and advance to the finals of Elephino Open number 10. The loser is not eliminated. They will go and play in the third place match. So either way, both of these players going to get another match. And they're already guaranteed the BlizzCon points, so they're already had a very successful day. Sudaka, having that really aggressive hunter that we talked about earlier, does hit his 1-drop and is able to throw out the Leper I missed the secret, so let's go ahead and show it real quick. You guys probably saw it. Noble Sacrifice, so this will clear off the Leper if it attacks in, which I'm assuming it will. He's got to eat the secret eventually, so might as well eat it now. This could potentially prevent Sudaka from playing the abusive, but he wants to get the board pressure out there anyway, so even if it's Noble Sacrifice, having the extra 2-1 on board next turn is more valuable to him than saving the Battle Cry from the abusive. So that's what he went with there, is to keep the board presence. He was going to lose the Leper anyway. So now, Bertosaurus throws out his Juggler and top decks the other Noble Sacrifice, so he's going to be able to play that, and he's going to hope to kill both of these minions with that Knife Juggler. So we'll see what happens here. The Noble Sacrifice is going to go off. We'll see where the Juggle hits. It goes to the face, not exactly where Bertosaurus wanted to, but nevertheless, the pressure is on. And he was still able to clear both of those 2-1 minions and keep himself at a pretty healthy life total. So Sudaka not able to get in a lot of pressure to the face thanks to those Noble Sacrifices from Bertosaurus. Now Sudaka's starting to get on the pressure. He does not see any point in trading those off. But Bertosaurus, fortunately for him, has the True Silver, so he's able to clear that off very cleanly and deal with the Knife Juggler cleanly as well. So clears the board from the Hunter, keeps a small board for himself as well as the weapon, which is not to be forgotten. And Sudaka down here running double Iron Beak Owl, undoubtedly to try to get through a lot of taunts, but unfortunately for him, that's going to slow him down a little bit right now. Not having any sort of pressure. And Bertosaurus saw an explosive trap earlier, so he went ahead and tested that first with his minion. It was not. It is a snake trap that we saw earlier, played from hand. I decided to show it again. And now Sudaka does have the Owl for a little bit of pressure and silences the Juggler, so I'm assuming we'll see an Owl and an Animal Companion here. Rolls the Misha again at the Animal Companion, so double Mishas coming out from his Animal Companions. Bertosaurus has the Mysterious Challenger on 6. We've already seen both Noble Sacrifices and the Competitive Spirit in hand, so this is going to be the Redemption and the Avenge, so he is not running Repentance. Generally, if one is cut, it's usually the Repentance. Some players decide to run all 5, some only 4. Bertosaurus is only running the 4 here. So now Bertosaurus is going to go ahead and proc that Snake Trap, which he was pretty sure it was. He knew it wasn't freezing or explosive from last turn. And clear the board, leaving Sudaka with just 3 1/1 snakes. And Sudaka is free to go to the face here if he wants to, knowing that there is no more Noble Sacrifices. Or he could clear the board, but it would he would be using a lot of his resources to do so. He's ahead in damage, especially with that Arcane Golem. So he's just going to put the pressure on. Makes a lot of sense. Just as we talked about earlier, dealing as much damage as he possibly can. Gonna hold back the Iron Beak Owl in case of another taunt of some sort. Like a Sludge Belcher would be the ideal target for that about now, I assume. And Bertosaurus is going to trade with the minion. Doesn't want to take more damage to the face for obvious reasons. And now that kill command's going to do it. Sudaka top decks the kill command with the beast on board, so it does 5 damage. Hero powers 2 more, and he had 3 more from the snakes on board. So that's going to be lethal for Sudaka, and he is able to win the series 3 games to 2. So congratulations to Sudaka for advancing to the finals. Bertosaurus, again, not out of it. He will be able to play in the 3rd place match. So we're going to take a short break right now while we get ready to set up the 2nd semifinals match. But hold on, and we will be right back shortly, so stick around. Okay, everyone, welcome back to Elephino Open number 10. Once again, I am still Elephino. We are getting ready to start the 2nd semifinals match, which is between Arusu and Bradford Lee. So congrats to both of them on making it this far in a 256-player tournament. Let me go ahead and show you the bracket just real quick so we can talk about that. We will be displaying the top semifinals match as displayed on your screen, so you can kind of get an idea of who these players competed against in the top 8. And we will go ahead and get started here as shortly as possible. Let me go ahead and tell them to get started. Bradford Lee will be on the bottom of your screen, and Arusu will be on the top of your screen. Bradford Lee is eligible to play Shaman, Warlock, and Warrior, whereas Arusu has Paladin, Priest, and Warlock. Again, these classes will be displayed on the left side of your screen, so no need to remember them. And as always, I will try to keep them up to date with the score, but occasionally I forget, so bear with me. These players have been itching to get going, so they are just seconds away. They're preparing to battle a friend, so that looks good to me. And then we will get you guys into the action. Again, the winner of this match will advance to the championship, and the loser will go down to the 3rd place match. All of them guaranteed a little bit of prize money and some BlizzCon World Championship points. So not bad for a day's work. All right, here we go. Let me go ahead and get you guys into this action.
I will fight with honor for Doomhammer.
Oh, there we go. He was on top of it. So as stated, Bradford Lee on the bottom of your screen decided to open up with Shaman. Looks like more of the aggro / face Shaman, whatever you want to call it. Meanwhile, Arusu on the top of your screen. Gonna go ahead and open up with his Paladin. So it looks like he's running the Murloc Anything Can Happen Paladin, so that's always fun to see. He generally wants to stall out the game and buy a lot of time, so Bradford Lee, on the other hand, wants to go as aggressive as possible with this deck, it appears. So we'll see which one is able to prevail in this scenario. Bradford Lee has a really awesome hand. All those 1-drops are going to allow him to get on the board early and often. He did not have the coin, but it's not really relevant right now with that hand. He's got a 1-drop into double 1-drops. Meanwhile, Arusu at the top here, seeing that aggressive Shaman is probably not ideal for him. He's debating on coining out a hero power just to have something on the board to contest that Leper Gnome so he doesn't have to take too much damage from it. And that's exactly what he's going to do. He needs to have an answer to slow the game down as much as possible, and that's what he felt was the best option. Bradford Lee going all in with the other Leper Gnome and the Abusive, so just a lot of pressure on the board here. And Arusu forced to throw down that Doomsayer to hopefully stop any more board development, but Bradford Lee can Lava Burst that, but that's a lot of damage to preserve 2 Leper Gnomes. Let's see if he, if that's what he opts to do. It's definitely a viable option. It's just a matter of which one he wants to do here in this situation. If he wants to discard those Leper Gnomes now and save the Lava Burst for over-the-top damage. Seeing Arusu with that Doomsayer, he's probably assuming that Arusu has some heals in his deck, so he wants to keep the board presence and the Lava Burst, so he's just going to Hero Power. Didn't pick up the Spell Power, got the Taunt Totem, as it were. So he's just going to go ahead and use his Rock Biter to clear that off and keep his board presence intact. So Rusu slowed down Bradford Lee a little bit. He was unable to get out that Feral Spirit, which would have been just a huge board presence for Bradford Lee. So now he has the other Doomsayer, so he's just going to throw that out there again, and Bradford Lee has the same answer. He did it last time, so why not this time? Top decks the other Rock Biter, and this time is able to follow it up with the Feral Spirits. So no more Doomsayers for Arusu, so Bradford Lee feels pretty comfortable putting on the pressure. We can see he does have the Equality in hand, so if he can set up a clear with the Equality Consecrate or the Wild Pyromancer Equality combo, he could be in some pretty good shape. But for now, just a really big board presence from Bradford Lee. Just going to go ahead and start by drawing a card. He does not have the Consecrate here. Consecrate to what, to what Bradford Lee may have thought by setting that down to 2 health. Bradford Lee does pick up the Silence, so just another top deck if he wants to use it. He could also use the Lava Burst to get through there, so a couple options. Already having seen both Doomsayers, he's just going to silence that off and just put on a lot of pressure to Arusu's face. Doesn't quite have enough to kill him right here, but if those Leper Gnomes go off, that would be enough to kill him. The heal bot, not enough to stabilize. Even if he had a Consecrate to clear here with the Equality, as stated, it wouldn't be enough because of the Death Rattle from the Leper Gnomes would finish him off. Looks like he's going to try to draw into something. I'm not sure what answer he could have here, unless he's running Reno. Usually this deck does not run Reno, but you never know. Arusu could have teched it in here. That's about the only out that I can see for him, is running that Acolyte of Pain in, top decking Reno, and going all the way back up to 30 health. But he doesn't top deck the Reno. Whether he's running it or not is irrelevant. It appears that Bradford Lee is going to take game 1. Arusu's still contemplating, though. Perhaps he's got an option that I'm not seeing here. He's gonna play this. He's gonna play this all the way out. Does heal back up to 9, but Bradford Lee has exactly 9 damage on board. The Doom Hammer adds a little bit more to that, even though it's not needed. We'll see if he wants to throw that out there anyway, or if he just does it. No, he doesn't have to. Arusu sees the writing on the wall. He's just gonna concede there. And Bradford Lee taking game 1 with his aggro shaman. So congrats to him on game 1. And we will see what they decide to go with here. The shaman is now locked out. So he will have to switch to another class. They are getting ready to start game 2. So let's get you guys into this action. We'll give this shaman a check mark, and Bradford Lee opting with his warlock to see if that can be the second victory over the paladin that Rusu stuck with again. So he feels pretty confident in that paladin, hoping to run into a little bit of a slower deck so he can have his time to get off that combo. Because the Murloc Paladin is really strong against control decks. Because you kill all their Murlocs and you stave off the early pressure that they produce, but killing off their Murlocs only makes their anything can happen stronger later on. So generally the first anything doesn't kill you. Not saying it can't by any means, but their real power comes from forcing you to deal with all their Murlocs early on. They all die. They get off the first anything can happen, either clear your board or set you really low, and then they back it up with a second anything can happen, which revives both of those waves of minions up to 7, obviously. And that's usually the one that gets you. It usually has a lot of damage. So Bradford Lee has the Mortal Coil, but he's opting just to tap here. He knows what Arusu's running, and is usually pretty strong. So he's just gonna keep this game slow and go ahead and coin out the Twilight Drake. The Mortal Coil was off the table now because of the War Leader. Now Arusu just having all the early board presence now, able to Aldor off that Drake, set it down to a much less threatening minion. And we'll see how Bradford Lee reacts to that. Shadow Flame does not do as much as it would have prior to the Aldor nerf. So it looks like he's going to kill off the War Leader first. Very smart play so that he can then Mortal Coil off the 2-1. So really strong play for him. Correct sequencing. Again, just really high-level play by all the players in this tournament. They never cease to amaze me how often they just sequence it perfectly. We very rarely see any misplays of any sort. So just really impressive. Now Arusu's got quite a few options. He's gonna just throw out the Doomsayer here, gets a little bit of damage to the face, doesn't see the need to trade, because if this Doomsayer goes off, then there was no point in trading. So sensing Bradford Lee being pretty low on health, he's just gonna get that pressure in and see if he can prevent any further board establishment for Bradford Lee. He could throw out the Piloted Shredder and he would be left with whatever minion comes out of that next turn. So that would be one minor way to combat this Doomsayer if he wants to take it. He also had the Power Overwhelming. He could have Power Overwhelming and attacked with both minions, but he's going to go with the earlier play, so he is left with the 2-2 that comes out of the Piloted Shredder now. So Rusu looks like he might attack into that with the Murloc there. He could just put the pressure on still and go face. But undoubtedly going to start with the Solemn Vigil. Very strong. It was reduced in cost thanks to that Doomsayer going off at the beginning of this turn. So he draws into a couple cards. Nothing a great answer on this board for the moment, so we'll see if Arusu just wants to go to the face. It looks like he does, assuming that Bradford Lee is going to have to destroy his minions. He's gonna take the aggressive route here and force Bradford Lee to have the heals to stabilize. We can see that he does have the heal bot. So he's going to take the value trade and leave the Murloc alive. Set up his Zombie Chow for more board presence. The Death Rattle heal is not really relevant right now since Arusu is still at 29. So not worried about that happening. He just wants the board presence. The Consecrate is going to prevent any of the trades from going off now and clear the board very nicely. So really strong play from Arusu, comboing the Pyromancer with the Consecration and clearing the board. Now Bradford Lee forced to use the Demon Wrath on just one minion. He is out of direct heals in his hand right now until the Alexstrasza on turn 9. He does have the Siphon Soul to respond to something big that Arusu could play. So Arusu going to take the trade there. He was putting pressure on, but he decided that the pressure was enough. He wanted to clean up the board, and he's going to fight for board control now. So Bradford Lee, though, tapping into the Emperor, he's going to be set down to 10, so he is not dead directly to a Blessing of Kings. So I'm sure that's what he was thinking about when he did that tap. Arusu would need something else in addition to the Blessing of Kings. He does have it. He would have had the Consecrate, but he doesn't have the Blessing of Kings that I keep talking about, so I don't know why I keep talking about it. It is not relevant right now. Looks like he is going to swing again with the True Silver so that he can clear off this Emperor. You don't want that to get too much value, so it makes a lot of sense. He's also going to be able to Hero Power and buff up his Keeper, buff up that minion with the Keeper of Oldemont. So able to clear the board and establish his own board presence again. That's usually a pretty good play in Hearthstone. Bradford Lee does have the Alexstrasza now. It's been discounted, not really relevant since it's turn 9 regardless. So we'll see if he feels threatened enough to heal for 5. It looks like he's going to tap and play the Belcher and fight for the board a little bit more as opposed to going with the more defensive play in Alex. And I can't say that I blame him. He's seen that Arusu was trading, which kind of signaled to him that he didn't have a whole lot of burst damage. So Bradford Lee felt fairly safe behind this Sludge Belcher, and it looks like it's going to work out for the most part. Arusu does have the Wild Pyromancer Consecrate again, should he decide to do that play. He's just going to throw out the Consecrate, though. It makes sense. Clears off the Sludge Belcher pretty nicely. Leaves it so the trades are not exactly terrible for Arusu. Especially with the War Leader out there. It makes it more likely that he's going to have something survive. He also has the Anything Can Happen. So if Bradford Lee does clear off the... Oh, he's got the damage in hand, but I should have talked about the 20 damage combo plus the 3 damage on board, so I'll stop what I was going to say about the Murloc War Leader because it is irrelevant. Bradford Lee, having enough of his combo discounted, was able to get off the 23 burst thanks to the Leroy Power Overwhelming Faceless. He drew into all of that fairly early in the game, had the Emperor go off. So that was had enough presence on the board to still do it. So had exact lethal, so really strong play from him. He spotted it all the way with enough damage, even though I was a little slow at spotting it. Doesn't matter. He was all over it. And Bradford Lee going to go ahead and take that game with his Warlock. So let's get back into game 3.
Fight with honor.
Give the check mark down there. And we'll see if Bradford Lee can complete the sweep here, or if Arusu is able to mount a comeback. He's sticking with the Murloc Paladin. So having a lot of faith in that Murloc Paladin. Going with it one more time. We'll see if it can finally pull off a win, or if it ends up being his downfall in this match. Bradford Lee just left with this warrior, so he just has to win 1 out of the next 3 games with this warrior, and he will advance to the finals of the tournament. Arusu not having much to play, not wanting to coin out the Pyromancer. Wouldn't have made a whole lot of sense. Bradford Lee with the Owl here and the shield blocks. This is an interesting combination here. It looks more like a control warrior, yeah, especially with the Shield Maiden. But the Iron Beak Owl is a tech card he's decided to throw in there.
Reporting for duty.
Judging up by the Owl, I would have expected Patron, but the shield blocks were throwing me off, and then the Shield Maiden definitely inclines more to a control variation. So we'll keep an eye out for any more cool little tweaks that Bradford Lee may have. Meanwhile, Arusu getting the Murkai out there to start chipping away at that armor that Bradford Lee has been establishing. Unfortunately, he does not have the Despite, which would have been the ideal answer right now for the Murkai. He did draw a weapon, but it was just the War Axe for now. Ooh, also running the Swamp Ooze. Okay, okay. I can get behind that. A couple of tech cards to counter different variations. And it looks like he was debating on throwing out the Owl this turn. He's going to start with the Slam and see what he draws into. If he owls that Belcher, he would be able to weapon down the remainder of that Murkai, and that looks exactly what he's going to do. So getting some value out of that Owl. And now Arusu with a Silent Sludge Belcher. He's going to start with a Hero Power and see if he wants to do anything else. Kind of a awkward turn for him. He could establish a True Silver. The Aldor doesn't look very strong. He's going to hold the True Silver. Very interesting. So kind of plays around the Swamp Ooze. So that was, if that's what he was playing around, that was very impressive. If he knew that Bradford Lee was running an Ooze. Perhaps it's becoming more popular again, and I just wasn't aware that it was being run. I probably would have established the True Silver there, but Arusu waiting to hold it now. And we'll see what Bradford Lee decides to do. He's going to start with his own shield block to draw a card. Looks like he is going with the Swamp Ooze to destroy that True Silver. Arusu does have the second True Silver. Bradford Lee also going to pick off the rest of that Sludge Belcher he's been working on. Now he is slightly ahead in the board presence, but Arusu's got a lot of cards up there. He can make a lot of things happen. He can't quite make anything happen, but he's got a lot of options up there nonetheless. You can throw out the other True Silver, having seen the Ooze, to kill that off pretty effectively. He's also got the Consecrate. Seems like it would be a little bit of overkill, but it would do the job. So we'll be very curious. He's going to start with the Hero Power. Looks like he's going to largely tempo out the Aldor, kind of nerf down the Ooze a little bit and get back to work on that armor. The Bash being picked up could be really huge here. It's a great answer to the Aldor Peacekeeper. You could use those slimes to take some effective trades. He's going to start by discovering a card. We'll see what he opts to go with here. Warsong Commander. Not exactly what he used to be. So not as strong, so I don't think he'll pick that one. He does go with the Imp Master. Pretty strong against Arusu's Paladin and his Hero Power. Those 1/1s able to trade in. And now Arusu, his hand building some more, is now up to 10 cards, so he will have to play something. We'll see what he goes with. Not a very threatening board here, so he's just going to tempo out the Antique Heal Bot for very little heal, but he needs the board presence, and he didn't want to use any of his answers to Bradford Lee's big stuff that could be coming later. Bradford Lee sensing enough pressure, he's just gonna brawl this off, and we'll see what survives. He does keep his Ooze. So that Ooze is the brawl champion. We'll see how long that thing can stick around. It's been out there for quite a few turns. And now back to Arusu in his very familiar predicament of having 10 cards. He's going to throw out the Doomsayer to prevent a big drop from Bradford Lee if he can. He's also going to throw out the Murloc, and that armor is getting very threatening. Bradford Lee able to establish quite a bit, but as we said earlier, Arusu with the Anything Can Happen, the first one will deal a lot of damage and chip off most of that armor, and then he's going to try to use the second one to finish Bradford Lee off. So that's the plan. So the armor, even though it's a lot, is not unsurmountable for Arusu. He just needs to draw into a few more of his Murlocs so he can make sure that he gets a really nice combo off from the Anyfin. The second of which being picked up right now, so we talked about the importance of having both of them. This Consecrate going to get quite a bit of value. Going to allow him to clear the board with that 1/1. Send a couple more damage at the face. Oh, he's not going to clear the board. He just wants to get that chip damage in right now, so definitely understandable. Bradford Lee says the same thing. He's gonna swing at the face with both, so he can use the Death Rattle to clear the board. And he can establish one of those minions. He can't do the Shield Maiden and the Sludge Belcher on this turn, so he looks like he's going to throw out the Sludge Belcher, use the Wolf Rider to do some pressure that he got from the Scarab, and still has enough to hero power on the backside of that. Arusu appears to be ready with the Pyromancer. So it looked like he had a plan and knew exactly what he was going to do. He has the Pyro Equality if he wants to use it. It would leave the remainder of the Sludge Belcher on the board. So it looks like he's not going to do that. He's going to clean it up with the True Silver after nerfing it. It does still trade in very cleanly to that Wild Pyromancer, so Bradford Lee probably not too upset with that outcome. He could keep the taunt alive if he wants to in a few ways. Looks like he's going to start by establishing the Despite. He is going to take the trade. The value trade with the slime makes sense. Tempo at the big game hunter probably wasn't going to get a whole lot of value in this game. Generally, the Murloc Paladin just run a bunch of those little pesky Murlocs as well as some survival cards. So he feels safe to tempo that out. Arusu has the Aldor Peacekeeper, so he's gonna set yet another minion's health, or attack to 1 rather. And set its and then set its health down to 1 with the help of the minion, so that way it will die to the swing of the Deathspite, if that's the path that Bradford Lee decides to take. He's going to start with the Slam Execute. Again, we talked about it not having a whole lot of large minions, so he feels comfortable just Slam Executing a Sludge Belcher. And now Arusu, having seen most of his Murlocs die, I can't remember if he killed both war leaders or not off the top of my head. But we're getting closer and closer to seeing if anything can happen twice. Arusu going to start with his second Consecrate, so he is out of those. Going to kill off the Shield Maiden. So he's fighting for board here. And just keep chipping away at Bradford Lee's armor, which has been maintained here in the teens for the last few turns. That's all going to change with this Shield Maiden if that's the route he decides to take. He might have still been debating on swinging first before playing the Shield Maiden, so Bradford Lee does go up to 21, so as stated, he is out of the teens. There's the other Murloc war leader, so that's the card he was waiting for before he does the Anything Can Happen, because that buffs up his minions. So he's probably relieved to see that, being stuck with the Anything Can Happens for quite a while. And also, Bradford Lee kind of fizzling out down here. He's had that Grommash for quite a while. The Revenge doesn't do as much as he would like it to. With that taunt in the way, he can't Revenge and then clear with the Deathspite because of a taunt, so he's just going to clear off the 1/1s and send 10 damage at Arusu's face, so definitely viable. Sensing the Anything Can Happen, Bradford Lee could trade in with the Murloc War Leader first so that he gets it back from the Anything Can Happen, so that's what he's debating right now. Or if he wants it to get buffed by the other one. So there's an argument for doing both. He's going to go ahead and cash it in first so he can get one back. He is forced to send more damage into the Grommash because otherwise he was dead next turn. And just start chipping away some more at the armor. So Bradford Lee down to 8. This Brawl, not a whole lot of help because of the other Anything Can Happen. And unless one of the 2/1 survives, he would not be able to even kill that with the Revenge. So it looks like he's going to armor. He is going to go for the Brawl. So Arusu, you're going to get a lot of value off the next Anything Can Happen. The War Leader survives, as we talked about, so this Revenge not able to clear off the remaining minion. And now Arusu, with the second Anything Can Happen, is going to have a lot of damage. This appears to be enough. I didn't quite do the math, but it looks like with 1 damage over lethal, Arusu finally gets a win with his Murloc Paladin, and he stays alive in the series, so he's able to get a win. So he's going to try to climb back in this series with that one, and he is now down 1-2 to Bradford Lee. So Bradford Lee stuck with the Warrior. He will have to run that back again, and they are getting ready to start game 4. So let's get you guys into this action. Bradford Lee, as stated, stuck with the Warrior. He's just got to win one of these next 2 games Now with that warrior to advance. Arusu, now with his warlock, which we haven't seen yet, but it appears to be very, very similar to the combo warlock that we saw a little bit ago from Bradford Lee. And oh, Bradford Lee running the Elite Starseeker in his control warrior. So that'll be interesting if we can see that get off. That could be the reason he has some of those tech cards in hand, the Swamp Ooze and the Owl, because he feels comfortable with those being converted into legendaries if he doesn't have to use them for utility. He can cash them in another manner. Bradford Lee does top deck the Jeweled Scarab, another tech card we didn't really talk about earlier. It's not generally ran in more traditional control warriors, but definitely seems to be working for Bradford Lee throughout this tournament. So he's going to discover a bash, which is really strong. Arusu has the Mortal Coil as the answer. And now Bradford Lee feels comfortable on this empty board. He's just going to coin out that Elite Starseeker and hope that he can get just a lot of value off of that this game. It trades in really nicely to the Pilot Shredder here. It could potentially survive to kill off the baby, but he's going to throw off the Bash first. Makes a whole lot of sense. Clear it with the Bash, and now the Elise is able to kill off the minion that came out of there, so really strong sequencing from Bradford Lee. Able to deal with that very effectively. Arusu going for the implosion. He gets a 3, so has enough to kill it. A 2 there would have been most unfortunate. Bradford Lee going to answer with the Sludge Belcher. So that'll slow down those minions just a tad. Unless Arusu wants to use some sort of his burst on that, which I don't imagine he does. I would not be at all surprised to see the Emperor Thorzen comes down here. Probably has Brawl in the back of his mind. Having a all those 1/1s are fairly weak to Brawl. If one of those minions survive. So Bradford Lee looks like he's just gonna armor and shield slam that. No need to overreact with the Brawl here. When he can clear that off much more effectively with the shield slam. So makes sense. And now back up to Arusu, who has another full hand for the most part. He's actually only at 9, so he could tap here if he wanted to. But Dr. Boom seems like a pretty good option. He couldn't have tapped in Dr. Boom, so no arguments with dropping the Boom here. We'll see if he decides to cash in those 1/1s. He does not. Not playing around the Revenge or anything of that nature. Definitely arguments for both sides. Bradford Lee going to start with the Slam. He has the Execute to back it up if that's the path he decides to take. He also has the other Shield Slam. There's several ways to deal with that Dr. Boom in the manner he chooses. He is going to use the Execute here. Save the Shield Slam, potentially, for a minion that he's not able to damage first. So that makes sense to use the Execute there. And isn't taking the value trades. He's putting the pressure back on Arusu with that Sludge Belcher. We'll see how Arusu reacts. He is going to start with the tap. He finally picks up his Reno, so that's good for him. He will have that at his disposal whenever he feels threatened. He is going to have to play something else here, or he'll be at risk of overdrawing next turn. So we'll see what he wants to tempo out here. Looks easy to start with the Boombots. See where those go. They connect to the face for a little bit of damage. Allows him to clean up the board for the most part with those 1/1s. Clean up the Belcher, I should say. Leaves the Slime. throws out the Lotheb and the Imp King boss to establish a pretty nice board. It's going to lock out the Brawl, so he doesn't have to worry about that. Doesn't lock out the Shield Slam, but it does make it quite a bit more expensive, so I don't think that's the path Bradford Lee's going to take, especially with that Despite in hand. If he wants to kill the Lotheb. I'm talking about just wanting to kill the Lotheb. He is going to go over the top with the Dr. Boom and keep the board pressure on Arusu and see how he deals with the Dr. Boom here. Looks like he's going aggressive with the Alexstrasza. He has quite a bit of burst in hand with the combo, so if he can get his opponent to not have a taunt and be even if Bradford Lee is able to clear the board, pardon me, Arusu does have 20 damage worth of burst from the Leroy Power Overwhelming Faceless that we saw earlier in the series. So Bradford Lee able to get up over 20, but he is going to have to clear the board here if he wants to survive, because even one minion being left alive, well, I suppose if he bashes, that's not entirely true, because bashing would give him 3 more armor, so he'd be back up to 24. So bash is could potentially save him as well. Looks like he's gonna slam though, so the bash and the hero power are going to allow him to clear the board. Or actually, I didn't mean the bash. I'm sorry, the slam and the hero power. Able to clear the board, keep himself in a pretty strong position. And we'll see what Arusu was banking on the combo this turn, undoubtedly. If he gets a power overwhelming, that's not quite enough, but next turn it will be enough damage to potentially kill Bradford Lee, depending on what he does. By not enough, I just meant Arusu did not have enough mana to do the combo with double power overwhelming this turn anymore. So it looks like he's going to toss out the Sludge Belcher. See if that can stave off some damage for him. Bradford Lee able to... Looks like he's going to be able to get off this Justicar, depending on how much pressure Arusu puts out there. Getting that Justicar hero power going is very valuable, but that Shield Maiden may alter his play a little bit. It does allow him to get more armor this turn overall. He's going to start by trading with the minions. He is going to go ahead and go with the hero power, Justicar, second hero power. So he gains 6 armor this turn that way. He's back up to 29. The combo would be 28 now with that second power overwhelming. So Arusu, 1 off of lethal with that combo. He's going to need something else to help him out. Oh, he has the minion on board, as I was. I apologize for that. The 2 damage on the board will give him enough, thanks to the double power overwhelming. And Bradford Lee was not able to clear the board completely. So this will be 30 damage coming at the face. And once again, 1 over lethal for Arusu's combo. And we are going to game 5. So Arusu climbing his way back into this, despite me my not seeing it. It was irrelevant. So I forgot about the 2 damage on board, but he did not. So that was enough damage. And now we're going to go to game 5. See if Arusu can complete the reverse sweep, or if Bradford Lee can stave off elimination now with his warlock or with his warrior. He was in pretty good shape a couple games ago, but all that has changed now, and it's going to come down to the second game 5 of the semifinals. So lots of really impressive plays and really strong Hearthstone action showing the strength of both of these players, not getting discouraged by going down 2-0. He fought his way back into it, and here we are in another game 5. So Arusu with his priest now that was left. Looks like it's a control priest going up there. We'll see how much burn he has. Usually this game could potentially last a while. Both of them playing pretty slow decks, it would appear. Arusu may have some sort of combo, judging off his other 2 classes that were combo decks. This may be, he may have some sort of combo in plan. But he's going to start with both of his Zombie Chows and both of his Death Lords, so not a terrible hand to start with. Going to try to get the value out of these Zombie Chows before they become a liability later on in the match, potentially. If you ever get into top deck mode, Zombie Chow is generally not what you want to see late in the game, so getting them off early is generally pretty good. Bradford Lee has the War Axe to answer that one. He could use the second swing to answer the other Zombie Chow, should Arusu put it out there, but he does not. He's just going to go ahead and heal Bradford Lee. And now Bradford Lee is going to toss out the Swampu since there's no risk of a priest running a minion. So just going to go ahead and tempo that out there. Get a little bit of board presence. Now he can start with the slam, is going to allow him to clear that Death Lord. And depending on what comes out of this Death Lord, or both these Death Lords, could really swing the series. So Big Game Hunter, not the worst one for Bradford Lee, not the worst battle cry. He's really hoping to not pull out something like a Justicar, or a card that has a battle cry that he can he's really going to need later on in the game. So pulling out a Big Game Hunter, not too terrible. He's going to start with the shield block here. It looks like he is going to shield slam and trade that in, so he's going to try to, he's going to pull another minion out of his deck and see what he gets. Ooh, he does get the Justicar, so that's unfortunate for him. Pulling that out of his deck, he will not be able to get the 4 armor hero power to this game, unless there's some way he can pull it back to his hand and replay it. But that doesn't seem too likely. So now Arusu has the Auchenized Circle if he wants to clear that way, and he would even get the damage from the Zombie Chow heal to his opponent's face. It would actually turn into damage with the help of the Auchenized. So that's what he's debating right now. If that's the path he wants to play here.
Is someone injured?
Looks like he's going to throw out the Northshire here. And just kind of sacrifice that to the board since he was not able to draw a card off of it this turn. So the bash from Bradford Lee, he's going to use that on the Zombie Chow. Makes sense. It had more attack than the Cleric, so using it on the more attack minion so that he could attack with his minion into the smaller attack makes a lot of sense. And now Arusu setting that up since last turn with the Auchenai hero power to finish off the Justicar. So that was his plan all along, undoubtedly. And now Bradford Lee establishing the Shield Maiden. Seems like a pretty good 6-drop for now. Arusu looks like he's going to hero power that as well so that it will die to the Sludge Belcher if Bradford Lee has to make that attack. He has Dr. Boom, which is usually a good 7-drop, but he's got a lot of other options he wants to play as well. So he's going to go ahead and Shield Slam off that Auchenai to prevent it from getting too much value here as the game progresses. And he is going to run the Shield Maiden in to the Belcher. So now Arusu is just left with the Slime. And Bradford Lee was not able to find the map last game. We'll see if he's able to do it this game. Rusu healing his opponent again, having a little bit of fun with it. Both of them are at full health, so it's completely irrelevant. And now Arusu really needs to start finding some value from that cleric. He wants to have a minion that he can heal, so he can start drawing some cards, because he's starting to fizzle out just a tad with some very situational cards that are not great answers to this board. So he does not have a light bomb here, or a Entomb would be good. So neither of those are in his hand, which would be pretty good answers to the board right about now. So that being said, he's just gonna set up the Justicar to buff his hero power and make sure that Bradford Lee's health is untainted in this game so far. Bradford Lee able to open up with a slam, so that was a good top deck. He can use the Boombot to finish off the Justicar, and that's what happens. Boombot only connects for 1, so that's good for Arusu. Bradford Lee gonna go with the shield block again. He hits his double execute from both of those draws this turn. And now Arusu under a decent amount of pressure. He's not able to find the answers for these large minions, and it looks like he's going to go with a Northshire Pyromancer
Is someone injured?
circle, just so he can draw a couple of cards here. He's going to have to use both Circle of Healings to do so, or his hero power, if he wants to heal his minions back up, because the spell goes off before the Wild Pyromancer. As you can see here, the Circle of Healing healed all the minions, and then the Wild Pyromancer does 1 damage to all minions on board. So he's going to draw quite a few cards. He still has enough mana for the Entomb. Looks like he's debating on the Power Word Shield first. So he's going to do that to keep his Pyromancer alive. And then undoubtedly follow this up with an Entomb on the Dr. Boom. So that is what happens. Finally able to use all that draw to restabilize his hand and the board a little bit. Bradford Lee picking up the Despite. That's a good pickup here. He's able to clean that off pretty nicely, and he does so. Establishes the Shield Maiden on the back side of that, so he's able to reestablish a nice board. Light Bomb, a pretty good answer here. So that's a good top deck from Arusu. So he goes ahead and uses that and is able to heal himself up for 4 thanks to the Justicar hero power. And it appears he's going to set up that Pyromancer as well to maybe eat up the second charge of the Despite. A Grom here would have been 1 off of a lethal. So he wasn't too worried about that, but that should be in the back of his mind going forward. So if he can bait out this swing on the Pyromancer, then he doesn't have to worry about that Despite connecting with his face. But this Bash is going to change that. And he's just going to send it back over to Arusu, keeping the Despite swing intact. Arusu starting out with the Thought Steal, picks up the Scarab, so he's going to toss that out there. See what he can discover. Debating on the Ice Rager, it looks like right now. None of these are great options. The Little Exorcist having the Taunt seems like it could be okay to slow down the weapon or a Grom, as stated earlier. So that's the debate he's having now, whether he wants the more pressure in the attack from the Ice Rager, or if he wants the utility that one of the other cards provide. He is going to go with the Taunt, and he's going to heal and toss the Exorcist out there as well. So Bradford Lee able to clear the board with just the swing of his mighty Despite Doesn't look like he's going to do that, otherwise he probably wouldn't have thrown out the Sludge Belcher first, so he's going to hold on to that and just hero power to set his armor up to 27. And the lack of burst that Priest usually has, that's a lot of hell to get through. Even though Bradford Lee was not able to establish a Justicar this game. We can see how much armor he was able to get by just having this game go very slowly and just casually armoring up every turn. Shield blocks, shield maidens. And now he's up to almost 60 health that Arusu is going to have to whittle down if he wants to come back in this game. Arusu debating on whether he wants to kill that with the Valens or the Entomb, it appears. Both viable options. He could also use the Auchenai and his 4 damage hero power that it would provide, but he's going to hold on to that. He's going to toss out the Valens Chosen. Trade his board into there. He can even heal up his Exorcist. So that's good for him. It prevents the Exorcist now from dying on board. Bradford Lee has the Owl, which would be a really good answer for it. He was waiting for something to be valenced until he used that Owl, but it looks like he's just going to trade off the board and execute and hold on to the Owl for something bigger. Maybe expecting a Ysera later on, and Bradford Lee running the Bouncing Blades that I just saw down there. So he is really on the kill 'em all play style. Just trying to hold out until the very end, and if this is all Arusu wants to do, then that's more than fine with Bradford Lee, I'm sure. He's going to get that chip damage in with the minion. And hero power here. He may throw out that Jeweled Scarab, which he does, because it will allow him to discover a card that we cannot see for some reason. So I apologize for that spectator bug. We will get to see what he got, so he kept the King's Defender, so that was a little awkward. Not sure what happened there. But it doesn't look like the spectator bug, or spectator mode bugged out completely, so we still appear to be spectating. It was just a minor issue with the Discover. No big deal. Arusu healing himself up before throwing out that Auchenai, if that's the play he wants to do. He's just going to heal and pass again. And the longer this game goes on, though, the more in favor it is for Bradford Lee, because his hero power, even though it's only 2 compared to Arusu's 4, Bradford Lee can armor, obviously, as you can see right there, way past his health, where Arusu, even though it's 4, will be capped at 30 health. So Arusu's on the pressure to kill his opponent eventually, or he will lose in fatigue. So Bradford Lee finally picking up the map, so he's going to toss that out there, see if he can draw into the Golden Monkey soon. Now that we're talking about fatigue, let's look at these card counts. The Warrior with 5 cards left in his deck, and the Priest at 5 as well, so they are equal in the fatigue battle as far as card draw is concerned, but that massive amount of armor that Bradford Lee has established will put him ahead there. He is finally going to use the second swing of the Deathbite along with this Revenge to clear the board. Now that he has picked up his second Deathbite, he can go ahead and establish that now if he wants to. Looks like he's going to hold off in case Arusu has some sort of answer to that, like a Slime or a Harrison Jones. Ooh, Arusu picking up the Sneeds. The Sneeds from the Museum Curator. That was really strong from him, and it's another threat that Bradford Lee's going to have to deal with if he wants to survive in this game. The Ironbeak Owl, that's a really good target for that Ironbeak Owl, so it looks like that's going to come out first. And then he's going to decide on how he wants to proceed from there. No, he's going to start with the Revenge first. Makes sense. He's going to Revenge, execute that off so he doesn't kill his own owl with the Revenge. Also going to use his second execute, so he is out of executes, and I believe he's out of shield slams as well. So any big threats that Arusu can have, Bradford Lee will have to use with the Bouncing Blade, but this is not a great Bouncing Blade board due to the obvious state of the boom bots. So we'll see how he wants to play this. Bradford Lee gonna set up the taunt minion so he can gain extra value from the weapon. We don't see that weapon a lot, but Bradford Lee sequenced it very nicely. Gets an extra charge on that weapon. And we'll see what Arusu can do here with the Dr. Boom. He still has a Entomb if he wants to just remove the Sludge Belcher completely from the equation and put it in his deck so that he can draw it and force Bradford Lee to deal with it later on. It appears that he's going to go through it rather than eliminating it from the equation. He's just going to destroy it off the board with the help of the Valence Chosen and heal his Dr. Boom back up to full. And now Bradford Lee was hovering over that Bouncing Blade. Still not great with that one Boombot on board, so I'm sure that's what is going through his mind. He could swing into the 1 health Boombot first, but there's still a little bit awkward for the Bouncing Blades here, so I'm not sure what I would do in this situation. Well, let's see what Bradford Lee does. He's going to start with just hero powering, and then he's going to pass it back. So he's just going to build up his board presence. Arusu, though, with a really nice board.
I'm almost out of cards.
Bradford Lee does pick up the Brawl, so that's a relief for him. That's what he was waiting for, it appears. He throws that out instantly. Didn't really matter which one survived. He's able to Bouncing Blades this off now. He was obviously hoping for the 1/1 Boombot, so he could have killed that with a weapon charge, but the Brawl and the Bouncing Blades able to clear the board, and now Arusu just left with what he has in hand. Ooh, he does get a very nice Museum Curator again. Picks up another Sneeze Shredder if he wants to, or he can go with the Major Domo. He's debating on both of those. I don't think he's going to take the Creeper here. He doesn't take the greedy play in the Major Domo. He's going to go with the Shredder here. Bradford Lee has another Brawl, but it's not great here. Even if it kills off the Sneeds, he'll be stuck with another legendary minion, so he'd be at the mercy of whatever comes out of that Shredder, which it looks like he's going to be at that mercy anyway. Arusu's still having an Entomb. If Bradford Lee tosses out the Grom here, or the Golden Monkey. So the Golden Monkey would allow him to turn his whole hand into legendaries, but it would also allow Arusu to Entomb it, and then he would get much, much more value from turning his hand into legendaries this late in the game. So they appear to be mostly at a stalemate as far as what's in their hand, but Arusu having the better board presence thanks to those Museum Curators. And now Bradford Lee forced to Brawl. He can't take that pressure. He is falling behind in the fatigue race with that board. We'll see what comes out. Ooh, a Ysera does come out, and that is devastating to Bradford Lee. He's going to have to throw out the Golden Monkey. It's going to get entombed, undoubtedly. He gets another Elise, but that's not too great. It will slow down his fatigue just a tad. Give him a couple cards to draw into, but that Bolvar is not going to be much help. And this Entomb, really painful, and Arusu somehow, some way, able to climb back into this game despite the large armor total that Bradford Lee had established. He's going to have to throw out that Elise to try to slow down the fatigue and start swinging that weapon at the face. Arusu cannot heal, though, right now because of the Akanai on board, so he cannot kill off his Akanai without some damage of his own. So that's a very interesting situation there. Let's see if it's enough to keep Bradford Lee in the game at all. I'm not sure that it is. This flash heal, he's going to use it to remove the minion because he knows that Bradford Lee is just left with whatever legendary got created earlier. And then the map that he's going to draw this turn, the map into the Golden Monkey, both of which he's going to be able to draw this turn. And now he is behind in health. The hero power will tie them in health, but they are definitely not tied on board. A Sylvanas! Now hold the phone. Could Sylvanas be enough to get him back in here? If he's able to steal that Ysera or something valuable on Arusu's side, that could be a game changer. Bradford Lee deciding if he wants to swing to the face now. It doesn't seem to matter too much. Unless he wants to get it in before the taunt of this Golden Monkey, but we got a game, and I don't think it's quite over yet. That Shadow Ward Death, super strong for Arusu, as well as all this damage coming in, so I don't see a way out for Bradford Lee, but the Sylvanas is his last hope. We'll see what it can do. Unfortunately for Bradford Lee, there's nothing that it can trade into directly on the board to kill it, to steal something. So at this point in time, he would need 2 turns to steal a minion, and he doesn't have 2 turns, so that's going to be pretty awkward for him. And I believe Arusu came back to complete the reverse sweep on Bradford Lee's Warrior. So wow, what a game, what a series. Really impressive play by both sides, and Bradford Lee unfortunately not able to close it out with his Warrior, and Arusu not giving up, able to complete the reverse sweep. So congratulations to Arusu. He's going to advance to the finals, but before that, we're going to see Bradford Lee playing in the 3rd place match. So we're going to take a short break while we set up the stream for that so we can give you the best possible experience for watching that match, but we will be back here shortly, so stick around. You don't want to miss that. Welcome back, everyone, to Elephino Open number 10. I am Elephino. We are getting ready to start the 3rd place match, which will be between Bradford Lee and Bertosaurus. I know I'm going to get those names confused. They're so close to each other. They're both long, and they both start with B, so bear with me if I mess that up occasionally. But they will be competing for 3rd place in the Elephino Open number 10, so very impressive that these players made it this far. We want to thank them for playing all the way through here to the last game for them. There will be the finals match coming up after this match, though, so stick around for that. Let me go ahead and show you the bracket while I'm talking about it. So you can see here we have the 3rd place match, and then after that will be the championship match. So we're saving that for last just to kind of build the suspense a little bit. But both of these players guaranteed a little bit of prize money, and they're both guaranteed a point in the BlizzCon World Championship Series standings. So congrats again to them on that achievement. And without further ado, let's go ahead and have them get started. So let's get them into the action, and then we'll get you guys in there. Bertosaurus will be on the bottom of your screen. He's got Mage, Paladin, and Rogue, while Bradford Lee should be on the top of your screen if I do my job right. And he will be bringing Druid, Shaman, and Warlock. So this should be a interesting series. Bradford Lee, kind of interesting. His warrior was banned in this match, but that was unfortunately his downfall in the last series. So I guess it's probably fortunate for him that he's not able to play at this match. So we'll see how that goes in this one. Looks like we may have a spectator. Oh, nope. Looks like it's going to correct itself. Spectate Bradford Lee's cards. Those should be flipping over here momentarily for you at home. There we go. It's going through a lot of motions here, but it looks like we're going to be settling down shortly. There we go. So Bradford Lee on turn 2 is going to throw out the other Tunnel Trog. And now Bertosaurus wasting no time at all. Both of these players playing very, very quickly. Gonna coin out that muster for battle. And probably just, he's gonna swing in there and start chipping away at these Tunnel Trogs. Doesn't want those to get out of hand too much. Trying to set those up to die here in the future. This Feral Spirit's really good play for Bradford Lee, buffing up both of those Tunnel Trogs, establishing a huge board, and able to put on a lot of pressure right now. Bertosaurus gonna have to throw out the Cogmaster and start chipping away at this board. He is gonna throw off. He's gonna keep the 1/1s alive and just use the Divine Shield to finish that off. This is the Avenge, so we'll see where that goes. Didn't really matter, it was the same outcome. This Ancestral Knowledge gonna buff the minions even more, and now he's got 2 5-attack minions on turn 4. That is so much pressure. Bertosaurus is gonna have to use the Consecrate here, so he's able to stave that off a little bit. So fortunately he picked up that Consecrate, able to clear the board here. We'll see if he can start to stabilize, but 10 health is not that much, especially considering the amount of burst that Bradford Lee's Shaman has. That's what they're made for. They are made to do all this burst damage. Fortunately for Bertosaurus, Bradford Lee is overloaded and not able to play the Doomhammer on this turn. He did have the Finley, didn't get anything he would have wanted. He doesn't want to take the dagger because he's got the Doomhammer next turn, so might as well just take the heal, because why not? He was looking for the Hunter hero power or even the Mage hero power to put on more pressure. Gonna use that Lava Shock to unlock his crystal so he can play the Totem Golem. He'll be overloaded by 1 next turn, but he'll still be able to Doomhammer. And just so much action going in here in these first couple of minutes. These first 5 turns went extremely quickly. Bradford Lee, with that overload last turn, is not able to have lethal this turn, but still a lot of pressure on the board, setting his opponent down to 4. So a Lava Burst over the top will even kill him. So even if Bertosaurus has some sort of taunt here, we know he doesn't. But that Lava Burst would have killed him over the top here, so I don't see a way out of this one, and it appears that he's just going to buff the Finley and take the damage to his face. So a lot of pressure early on from Bradford and Bradford Lee. And he's going to take game 1 with his Shaman. So that Shaman performing really well in this tournament. That aggression, if your opponent is not able to answer it and stave off that early pressure, it can become very overwhelming and really hard to recover from. And that's exactly what happened in this game as well. So here we go, wasting no time. We are getting into game 2. And Bradford Lee gonna go with his Druid. Meanwhile, Bertosaurus sticking with the Paladin. That losing to an aggro Shaman doesn't generally tell you very much about how your deck is performing. That's usually an anomaly that cannot be affected by no matter what your opponent does for the most part. So he's gonna stick with the Paladin, and not get discouraged by that quick victory by Bradford Lee last game. He has the living roots here to deal with that Secret Keeper before it can get out of control. Unfortunately, that means he does not have the living roots for the Knife Juggler. He does have a Wrath, that's the path he chooses to take. He can also set up the Wild Growth, so he has more plays next turn. The Wild Growth would give him a Keeper of the Grove next turn without having to use the coin. So he could use that to peg off the Knife Juggler. He is going to get more value from this muster for battle because the Knife Juggler was not killed last turn. So all those juggles just going to go directly at Bradford Lee's face. So all kinds of value coming from that Knife Juggler. Bradford Lee now looks like he's going to take that exact play I was talking about. Keeper of the Grove, deal 2 damage, kill off the Knife Juggler. That's what he does. Able to come back a little bit on the board here. Bertosaurus having a pretty good turn himself with the Haunted Creeper and the Hero Power. Still able to maintain a pretty good board presence. A swipe would be really huge here. Bradford Lee does not have it though. He could have traded in the Keeper into the Keeper into the Creeper and then swiped off the entire board. But instead, he's going to have to come up with something else. He could set up the Taunt here and then make a trade on board, make a value trade on board, so the Druid of the Claw does not die as cleanly. It will require something from Bertosaurus' hand. He's drawn into all of his endgame, so this is exactly what he was looking for. He had the early game pressure, and now he is curving out just beautifully into his endgame. So he's going to have the 5, 6, 7, 8 draw, and that is just ridiculous. I don't know if Bradford Lee can hold off all that pressure, because this is just going to get insane. I don't think we've seen a secret yet from Bertosaurus, so that Mysterious Challenger is going to pull out 4 secrets, if I'm not mistaken, from earlier. And Bertosaurus is going to have to put on the pressure, and hopefully he can draw into some combo here in the next couple of turns to finish off his opponent. Bertosaurus is going to trade off a decent amount of the board and set up the Mysterious Challenger. The 4 secrets do come out, so he's not playing the Repentance. That would be the 5th secret, and nobody's playing the Sacred Trial, so don't have to worry about that one. So we'll see for Bradford Lee how he wants to navigate this situation. Wrath looking pretty good on the Lotheb, but it will set up an Avenge. And it will have to avenge. The Avenge will have to land on one of the 1/1s, which the odds are pretty good. But then Bradford Lee will also be forced to Hero Power to proc the Noble Sacrifice as well. So this is a huge play, or a huge turn in this game for Bradford Lee. How he wants to navigate this situation could make all the difference in the world. He's going to have to make up his mind pretty quickly. The secrets take quite a while to go off, and he's got a bunch of them. So the Avenge is going to go off. It's going to land on a 1/1. He's going to use the Wrath to clear off the 5/1. Oh, that's why he didn't kill. That's why he did not Wrath it first. So he didn't want the Lotheb being redemptioned. Really nice play from him. Competitive Spirit is going to go off on a pretty large board, and that is a lot of damage, and I'm not going to add it up, but it's enough. And Bertosaurus able to quickly even up the series at 1 game apiece, thanks to his Paladin. So the Paladin, redeeming itself from game 1 against the Shaman, is able to take a very quick, decisive victory over the Druid. So we'll see what they both decide to come back with here in game 3. Bradford Lee could stick with his Druid, but Bertosaurus will have to switch. Neither of that happened. The Bradford Lee going ahead and go with his Warlock here in game 3. And Bertosaurus gonna go with his Rogue to see if that can get a victory here. Bradford Lee, as we saw earlier, running that Leroy Faceless combo. Has the nice 1-drop there in the Zombie Chow to get a lot of pressure early on. Bertosaurus wasn't pressured enough by it. He could have backstabbed Coined Weapon, but that didn't seem super great. He's going to hold on to the coin. And he's going to hold on to the weapon, so it's going to survive another turn. So that Zombie Chow getting in at least 4 damage. And now we'll see what Bertosaurus wants to do here. He is going to throw out the Earthen Ring Farseer, heal himself back up a little bit. That trades pretty nicely with the Zombie Chow next turn, and it also does not die to the Imp Gang boss. It will with the help of this Defender of Argus, though. So that appears to be coming out. He is going to take the value trade. He takes the value trade with the Zombie Chow, preferring that it dies if either one of them is going to die. Kind of baiting the weapon attack on the Zombie Chow. Betasaurus thinks that's a good idea as well, so he's going to go ahead and do that, heal himself back up to 28, establish the piloted Shredder. And now Bradford Lee has a pretty good value trade if he wants to take it on the Shredder, thanks to it being buffed by the Defender of Argus. That's one option. He's got a couple other options he could do. He could start with a tap here, usually a good play for a Warlock. Gonna tap and see what you want to get. He's flirting with that Faceless Manipulator. Facelessing that Imp Gang boss could be really strong. So he's gonna go ahead and do that play before attacking in for obvious reasons. Fortunately for Bradford Lee, a minion does come out of that Shredder that he's able to kill with the Defender of Argus. So he's able to clear up the board pretty nicely. A Blade Flurry would have punished the Faceless, but he would have had to buff the weapon and do the Blade Flurry, and Betasaurus didn't quite have all those resources now, so he's just gonna clear off that Imp Gang boss and set up the Loatheb, which trades pretty nicely on the board. Could slow down that pressure a little bit. Bradford Lee looks like he's gonna go on the super aggressive here. Nope, hold the phone. He's gonna trade with the Arcane Golem. I thought he was gonna go pressure with the face, but he's gonna just keep the board presence. Trading off the Loatheb. And now Bertosaurus is at 7 mana. He could go up to 8 with the coin, thanks to the Arcane Golem. He has the Prep Sprint in hands, so he could run that if he wants to. He's debating on the Azure Drake. Draw him a card, so he's going to start off with that. Seems pretty strong. He has the blade, or he has the preparation to combo any spells that he might have gotten off of that. So an Eviscerate, a Prep Eviscerate would have killed off the Imp Gang boss very nicely. So that might have been what he was looking at. Instead, he's going to go with the Deadly Poison. He's going to swing that in there. We'll see if he decides to prep out this Flurry. It appears to be the path he's gonna take, and that's exactly what he does. Able to clear the board except for a 1-1. Gonna come out of that Imp Gang boss. So pretty good turn from Bertosaurus. Able to finally establish board control and kind of slow down the pressure a little bit. Now Bradford Lee has still has a couple options. Dr. Boom being the most obvious of those answers. So he is gonna take that path as well. And keep the pressure on. Bertosaurus now drawing into that Eviscerate. Could help him deal with this Dr. Boom. The backstab and Eviscerate. Very nice answer to the Dr. Boom. Also, both spells, so he's able to produce a couple 1-1s thanks to the Violet Teacher on board. We'll see what he opts to do with the Azure Drake. It appeared that he went face with it earlier, but can't be sure. He did indeed go face. So Bradford Lee down to 18. Bertosaurus still at 14 with a really nice board, though. Bradford Lee has a couple board clears, though. He's got the Shadow Flame and the Demon Wrath, both of which could do a pretty good job. He could Power Overwhelming this, hit his opponent in the face, and then Shadow Flame it. Clear off the board. That appears to be what he's going to do. The Boombot will also hit his opponent in the face for 3. So he is now at 5. So putting on the pressure, Bradford Lee is going to tempo out the Big Game Hunter. Bertosaurus forced to use that sprint because that's pretty much all he had. He does sprint into some answers. That backstab able to nicely clear off the Big Game Hunter. Followed up with this Eviscerate. It's going to go face, setting his opponent down to 14. Now 13 with the weapon swing. And he's hoping he can draw into some sort of big combo here in the next couple of turns. This abusive. This Mortal Coil is going to go off, and it's going to set off the Boombot, and let's see how much damage it hits for. It hits for 4, and really nice played by Bradford Lee, sniffing out that lethal. So he was able to abusive that off, and then all the Boombot had to do was hit for at least 2, so he had a 75% chance at lethal there, and he got it. He got the 4, so definitely had enough damage there. We are getting ready to go here into game 4. So let me go ahead and give the Warlock a victory up top there. So Bradford Lee ahead in the series now, 2-1. He just has to win with his Druid now. Bertosaurus sticking with the Rogue. Both have not the worst hands. Bertosaurus gonna try to hope to pick up some early game minions, but he has his weapon hero power should he need to rely on it until he's able to stabilize a little bit more. Bradford Lee has the Coin Wild Growth, which, while it isn't ideal what you want to see from your Druid based off Bertosaurus' hand, at least it's not a early game minion that he was going to be forced to deal with. So taking the game slow, he's probably okay with that for now. Bradford Lee going to ramp up very quickly, though, because now he's able to play out this Mounted Raptor on turn 3 thanks to the Wild Growth last turn. Bertosaurus has the small answer in the Phantom Knives with his weapon, so he's able to draw a card, deal with this, and a 1 mana cost minion will come out of that. It is the Timberwolf. So not a terrible minion, it's something that Bertosaurus can deal with next turn with just his weapon, if that's his chosen path. Bradford Lee gonna go with the second Wild Growth, having the Dr. Boom in hand. He's just going to throw out the other Wild Growth. Not a lot of pressure from Bertosaurus' side, so he felt comfortable just establishing that ramp. Bradford Lee, even without the Wild Growth, could have innervated into the Dr. Boom this turn. So we'll see if he decides to take that play, or if he's got another one. He's looking at... He was playing with the Keeper just a little bit, so he might be considering silencing off the Violet Teacher. Now he's looking at the Swipe. Swipe Hero Power would deal with it very nicely as well. Or Swipe Wrath would allow him to kill it and draw a card, should he use the Wrath in that situation. Looks like that's what he's going to do. Do a little bit of a cycle into his deck, since he's going to get the ramp. He wants to be able to take full advantage of it, trying to get into some more of those 7 drops here coming up. Put the pressure on. Bertosaurus having a nice 4-drop there, and the Piloted Shredder is going to be answered by Bradford Lee, and the Dr. Boom finally getting to come out on turn 7. Well, not turn 7, but 7 mana, I should say. Now Bertosaurus has a pretty good amount of burst in his hand. He's got a lot of spells, and he's got the preps to back it up, so he doesn't have a Blade Flurry at the moment, so that won't allow him to clear the board in that manner. So we'll see if he wants to use these oils and put on a lot of pressure, or use the oils to clear off the Dr. Boom. He's got a lot of options, and he's definitely thinking about that preparation. Hopefully we didn't experience another spectator bug, but I think he's just debating on what he wants to do next, holding up that preparation.
So many options.
So we'll see what he opts to go with here. He's going to have to make up his mind fairly soon. The rope's going to put the timer on this. Hopefully he didn't disconnect. That would be very unfortunate. Ooh, so the rope does go off, so either we have a spectator bug or Bertosaurus might have just disconnected. Hopefully it was a spectator bug. I'd hate to see a disconnect happen in the third place match. Let's see if we can see what Bradford Lee does. If he doesn't make any moves, then we might have a spectator bug here. Bertosaurus has gone offline. You just saw that, so it was a disconnect from Bertosaurus. Now, per the rules, the official rules of the Elephino Opens, a disconnect is a one-game victory for Bradford Lee. Now, that is not written in stone. Should Bradford Lee agree to it, they would have the option to replay the game if Bertosaurus comes back. So we'll see how this plays out. Okay, so there is the disconnect from Bertosaurus. Let's go ahead and send you to the bracket. I'm going to try to talk to them and see if I can get this sorted out. Bertosaurus is back online. So actually we'll send you to this screen. It looks a little bit prettier. Tells you a little bit more about what's going on. We're gonna talk to them and see what's going on. So yeah, it was indeed a disconnect. We'll wait for Bertosaurus to get back in here. I apologize for the loud typing. So yeah, they're both back, fortunately. And they were deciding if they want to remake or guarantee the win. I'm making sure that he knows if he wants to claim the win, he is in his right to. But in the nature of good sportsmanship, it is generally accepted to remake the game if there was not a clear lethal on board for either player. So it looks like he's going to. Looks like he is a gentleman and a scholar. He's going to allow us to remake the game. So we're going to have that exact same action coming at you here really shortly. I'll thank him for the sportsmanship. So really nice gesture from Bradford Lee is going to allow us to remake that. So we'll thank him for allowing us to continue the Hearthstone action. We're going to wait for Bertosaurus to establish his connection completely before we force him into the game. So that this will hopefully not happen to him again. That game was super close. Really could have gone either way. So it'll be exciting to see what happens here in the rematch. They both appear to be online, so we'll see when he feels comfortable with his internet connection. We will get this game started again. So I apologize for the slight downtime in here, but we are going to get you guys back in that action, and we'll have a replay of that game. Oh, it looks like he might have disconnected again. That would be unfortunate. Oh, and it looks like Bertosaurus is throwing in the towel due to connection issues. He has... Okay, he has conceded the victory over to Bradford Lee due to internet issues. So Bradford Lee will take third place in the Elephino Open number 10. So we'll go ahead and thank them for both of them for playing in the tournament and for doing so well. Unfortunately, it didn't end exactly the way we would have liked. We want to see that get played out, but unfortunate situation occurred with internet issues. So both of those players still going to go ahead and take home a point in the BlizzCon standings. So we're going to go ahead and cut to another short break while we set up the finals match, which will be between Arusu and Sudaka. So stick around and we will be back shortly. Hello everyone and welcome back to Elephino Open number 10. We are getting ready to start the finals between Arusu and Sudaka. So both of these players played through a grueling 256 player field, and now we are down to the final two. One of these players will become the Elephino Open number 10 champion, and they will take home $15. And they will also get 3 points in the World Championship standings by Blizzard. Second place will get $10, and they will take home 2 points in the Blizzard World Championship standings. So the money's not a whole lot, I'll admit. We're trying to get some more funding for that, but the World Championship points are very important if you're trying to get into the World Championship scene and BlizzCon and all those qualifiers and whatnot. So let me go ahead and show you the bracket real quick one more time before we get started so you can kind of see what other players we had going around. So you can see in the last match, due to an unfortunate internet connection issues, Bradford Lee took third place over Bertosaurus. So really nice guy, Bradford Lee. He was willing to do a replay, but Bertosaurus just threw in the towel due to internet issues. So lots of respect for both of those players. They were both playing really, really well. So we want to thank them one last time for competing and congratulate them on doing so well and making it to the third place match. That's really impressive. So now that we are down to these final two players, we're going to go ahead and have them start when they are ready. Sudaka will be on the bottom of your screen, and he will be running Hunter, Paladin, and Warlock. Meanwhile, Arusu will be on the top of your screen, and he has Druid, Paladin, and Warlock at his disposal. So they both are running Paladin and Warlock. They disagree on Druid and Hunter for this match. So we'll see who's able to prevail in this best of 5 conquest match for the title of Elephino Open number 10. The next Elephino Open, number 11, will be next Sunday, so a week from today. And the semifinals will start at the exact same time as these did, which was 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. So keep an eye out for that if you enjoy the Hearthstone scene and would like to get into some open tournaments. Looks like they're getting ready to start, so let me go ahead and get you guys in there. Alright, so he invited me to spectate. Let's try it one more time. Let's see if he can send the invite out again so we can flip over his cards. He has a spectate mode off, which is a check mark you can do. he tried to invite me, but because of the way I had the stream set up, I had to spectate Sudaka first, so I was unable to accept that. So doesn't matter. He was able to invite us again, so we can see both players' cards in action. Both decided to open up with the Warlock. Or, I'm sorry. Arusu decided to open up with the Warlock. Sudaka opening up with the Paladin. Wow, I don't know where that came from. And Sudaka looks like he's tossing back his entire hand. Gonna get a new one. Gets a nice 2-3-4 curve. Rusu's going to have to play it a little bit slower here in these couple opening turns. Not a huge deal for him. That's kind of what he wants to do. Tap into his answers. Sudaka going to be able to take initiative on the board here with the mini bot or the knife juggler if he wants to. All depending on how aggressive he wants to be and whether or not he feels Arusu has an answer to the knife juggler, like a dark bomb, for example. So he's going to debate on it. Hopefully we didn't have a... Hopefully he's debating and we didn't have a spectator bug here. That would be unfortunate. Generally I look for... you can see like the red arrow pointing off into nowhere when a spectator bug appears. So, okay, it looks like we're good to go. He was just really debating on that turn. And understandable. There's a decent amount at stake in here. You made it all the way to the finals and you really want to do your best here to come out on top, so no need to rush. And Arusu now, we know he does not have the dark bomb. He could have used an AoE to clear the knife juggler should Sudaka played it, but Arusu just gonna tap here on turn 2. Does not feel threatened enough to coin something out, saving the coin undoubtedly for the Drake next turn. So now back down here to Sudaka. He's got a couple options. He's debating both of them. Gonna go with the Musker. Definitely really strong. And send the rest of his damage to the face. Makes sense. Now Arusu. Kind of an interesting board. Wouldn't be a terrible board to Demon Wrath. You could also coin out that Twilight Drake, as I mentioned last turn. Depends on how much he feels threatened by this early pressure from Sudaka. Looks like he is going to go with the Demon Wrath, kind of slow the game down just a tad, save the Drake for next turn. This opens the window a little bit for Sudaka to go on the board a little more with the Knife Juggler and Seeker Keeper if that's what he wants to do. He's already seen an AoE, so he feels a little bit safer, perhaps, extending into the board. On the other hand, you see that Arusu used a AoE on not that threatening of a board right now, so that could be a read for him that he has another AoE. So it looks like he's just going to forego the Knife Juggler yet again and kind of play around a second AoE, which we see that Arusu does have in the form of that Hellfire. So if that was his read, that was a very good read from Sudaka, not investing too heavily into another AoE. So really strong play from both of these guys. Arusu going to use the second AoE, so Sudaka probably patting himself on the back a little bit for not throwing out the Knife Juggler. And now Arusu looks like he's going to coin out the Zombie Chow. Might as well try to establish a little bit of board presence and see if he can stave off the next wave of attacks from Sudaka. Sudaka picks up the Sludge Belcher, which was a really huge top deck for him. He had a couple other options, but this is in my opinion, is by far the best, and that's the route he takes, so he seems to agree with me. Arusu drawing into the Dark Bomb. Don't know that it helps him a whole lot here. So he's just gonna throw out the Twilight Drake. He could have used the Dark Bomb to clear off this Sludge Belcher, but it wouldn't have established much on board behind it. So he's gonna set up the Drake instead. Try to maintain that board presence. Sudaka has the tools at his disposal to deal with this Drake should he want to. Instead, he's gonna finally let that Knife Juggler into the action. Throw out the Creeper. Does get the juggle. Second juggle goes to the face. That doesn't really matter. He did not have the damage on board to clear the Drake. Even if both juggles went into it, he would have been one short. So probably not too upset. He does play a little bit into this mind control tech, so we'll see what it takes. Gets the juggler, not the worst one. The juggler does proc by that mind control tech. I was not familiar with that interaction, so that's good to know. So we'll write that down and save it. If you mind control a knife juggler, you get the proc from the knife juggler. That's kind of interesting. Arusu gonna use that Dark Bomb we talked about last turn. Slow down the pressure from Sudaka a little bit. Going into turn 7, Sudaka has not drawn into his Mysterious Challenger, which he would ideally have on turn 6 or turn 7. Can't play that Tyrion until turn 8, obviously, so he's going to have to find some sort of other path. Whether it involves this True Silver Champion or not remains to be seen. He could toss out the Knife Juggler and trade in the Creeper. See where the juggles go. Perhaps that will allow him to get a lot more value from that slime. He's going to start with the True Silver. Looks like he's going to peg off that Drake. He's also going to establish the Knife Juggler for future turns, since next turn his play is pretty much set up for him. So he is going to do the trade that I talked about and get the juggles. Nails one of the juggles on his opponent's Knife Juggler, so that's a huge juggle for him, not wasting any damage into the mind control tech, so that's what he was hoping for. He wins one of the 33 percenters. So now Arusu gonna have to respond. He's used a couple AoEs already, so he might have a Shadow Flame somewhere, but I imagine he's running Reno, so I wouldn't bank too heavily on him having another of those smaller AoE clears, Demon Wrath or Hellfire. He has the Twisting Nether we see, can't do that until next turn. But that is another board clear for later in the game when one of these big minions comes out. For example, you know, the Tyrion. Probably a better answer for the Tyrion will be the Siphon Soul, though, depending on what else Sudaka is able to establish on board, or is remaining on board at the time. So we'll see. It's a really hard turn. This is very interesting. It's definitely not clear cut at all. So he is taking his time. He is going to use the Siphon Soul on the Knife Juggler, set himself back up to 14. He was getting a tad bit low. Sudaka, having seen the Siphon Soul though, feels a little bit safer about tossing this Tyrion, I would guess, but he's got to be a little bit afraid of Twisting Nether, which is in hand for Arusu. So we'll see. If he does decide to go with the Tyrion, you could make the argument for using the weapon charge. So that way you're not forced to overwrite a charge of the True Silver. So we'll see what he decides to go with here. He does throw the Tyrion out there. And now if he's sensing a Twisting Nether, he would not trade. So he's banking on his opponent not having a Twisting Nether. So he does decide to use the trade there on the minion. Arusu, the Twisting Nether seems like the only option to me with his health total. If he throws out the Dr. Boom to be more aggressive. Oh, the Faceless Manipulator works as well. He just top decked that Faceless Manipulator. So he's going to create a Tyrion of his own for a little bit cheaper, able to heal himself back up. Sudaka able to deal with this pretty nicely, though. He has the 1/1 hatchlings to pop off the Divine Shield. And he could even set up the Redemption and make it so that Tyrion is the only minion remaining on board if he wants to. Kind of bait out the removal, and then redemption comes on Tyrion, and that would be unfortunate for Arusu. He's not going to do that. He's going to set up his own 3-3. Now he's deciding if he wants to use that to trade into the Earthen Ring or if he wants to go aggressive and hit his opponent in the face. He decides to go that route, assuming that Arusu is going to have to get through this Tyrion anyway, so doesn't want to miss the valuable damage to his opponent's face. Arusu still trying to cling to his life total. So we'll see what he goes for here. He's going to trade in first and then use the Mortal Coil. He draws a Implosion. So he sets off the Redemption, and now he's going to use the Twisting Nether. So he wanted to see what that secret was before using the Twisting Nether in case it was Avenge. He wanted to make sure he got the value out of that. Sudaka, with that unfortunate card for him, he doesn't want to play because it would overwrite his current weapon, and that would just be... doesn't seem like as strong of a play. It would establish more of a board presence if that's what he values this late in the game. He's just going to keep the weapon though, so that makes perfect sense. Arusu has the Lotheb. Looks like he's going to Lotheb, Abusive, and taunt them both up to get in the way of Sudaka. You could even decide to swing face if he wants to, or kill off the minion if he wants to play around any buff cards that Sudaka might be running. But it looks like he's pretty low, so he's going to go to the face here and go on the aggressive here. He has a lot of damage next turn, so he would have lethal next turn if his board remains, or if Sudaka is forced to use his weapon and the minion to clear the Lotheb. That would obviously be essentially the same thing. So I don't see a way out of this for Sudaka. And it appears that Arusu, unless I'm mistaken, was gonna take game one with his Warlock. And that's what happens. Sudaka sees it happening, so he knows that there was lethal on board, didn't see a way out of it, so he's just gonna go ahead and concede game one over to Arusu and his Warlock. So we're getting ready to start game two here. Arusu will have to switch classes. Since this is Conquest format, as we talked about earlier, his Warlock will be locked out for the remainder of the tournament, essentially. And meanwhile, Subaka can decide to switch if he wants to, or he can run the Paladin back again, whichever he decides. Again, we did stress that this is the championship match, so the importance of this match is pretty high to these players. They've invested a lot of time and effort into playing in this tournament, so they want to make sure that they get these next class picks correct. So they are going to take a little bit of time here and really think through what they want to play this next game with. Okay, it looks like they have decided. Let's get into the action. Oh, we got a reverse. So it appears that so Arusu now on the Paladin, and Sudaka here on the Warlock. So a little bit of role reversal here. Sudaka, though, is running more of the Zoo, if I remember correctly. And Arusu is running the Murloc Paladin. So they're playing the same classes as their opponent played last game. However, they are both different variations. So we're getting to see a little bit of something new as last game here. You can see the strength of both of these classes having two different or multiple different builds that are viable on both ladder and tournament play. So you're getting to see a couple here if you're looking for a cool new deck to play on the ladder. Both of these classes are very strong and have a lot of versatility in their builds. Sudaka going to keep the 1 and 2 drop, establishes a really nice curve here if he wants to throw the Abusive out there. Doesn't have to. He's got the coin. That coin 2 drop makes his decision a little bit easier. He can coin 2 into 2 if he wants to. Rusu has a couple of his board clears already. He's got the Doomsayer, which could be nice to clear up the early pressure if he feels he's fallen behind too early on in the game. The Nerubian Egg is a pretty nice counter, though, to that Doomsayer going off. Prevents a full board clear. Sudaka is going to coin. Going to go with the Haunted Creeper. Makes a lot more sense than the Egg. Allows you to attack with it next turn. Pick off the hero power if that's what Arusu's forced to do. And it looks like it is. So now Sudaka, having the Haunted Creeper, could take the value trade if he wants to. And we'll see what he decides to establish on the backside of that. If he throws the Egg out now, he can buff it with the Cleric next turn. So that seems pretty strong to me. That appears to be the road he's going down. Rusu was just with another hero power, but as we talked about earlier, he is very comfortable with this deck going slow. He has heal, he has removal, he has clears, and then he has the burst at the end. So he just wants to stall out this game as long as he can and just cycle through his deck to draw those Murlocs and into the anything can happen to burst down his opponent at the end. So the slower this game goes, the happier he's going to be. Sudaku, yes, with the Zoo, though, generally they want to get out and go pretty quickly, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him establish a bigger board here. Looks like he is going to take the value trade. He was debating on the Brand Bronzebeard this turn, because then next turn he would have gotten double value from the Cleric or the Abusive Sergeant. The Direwolf Alpha is not a battle cry, so it does not benefit from the Brand. Orusu going to set up his True Silver, clear off the largest current threat. And now Sudaka has the Brand Abusive if he wants to take that. He also has the Voidwalker if he wants to throw that in the way of the True Silver. Eat up that second charge. And prevent it from killing the Brand. If he does go with the Brand Abusive here, he leaves his Brand exposed. So I don't imagine that'll be the play. If he throws out the Brand, he'll probably do the Voidwalker, unless he just wants to get out a lot of pressure and get a lot of damage as quickly as he can. He could have gone with the Abusive. That would have been a viable play as well. He does go with the Voidwalker. Now Arusu. Not enough mana to do the Wild Pyromancer Consecrate. So he's going to have to... That would have been a fairly good clear here. He could have weaponed into the 4/4 and fully cleared the board, but not enough mana. So he might just tempo out this Doomsayer, knowing that it's probably going to die, but it will heal him. And then he has the board clear next turn. So he is... If he does go that play, it's because he's really not threatened by the board because of the play he has next turn. Oh, I guess I was mistaken. That would not be a full board clear, would it? Because the Brand would not die. I guess I was thinking of a if there was inequality there. If you went with the Wild Pyromancer equality, but with the Consecrate, that would only be 3 damage onto the Brand. So I was mistaken again. It happens. And now with this Doomsayer and the Acolyte of Pain coming off, Sudaka can prevent all draws from this Acolyte of Pain if he just lets the Doomsayer go off. And he would be left with the Egg and the Nerubian and the 1/1s coming out of the Creeper. So it wouldn't have been a terrible board. He is going to go with the clear. He's going to limit the card draw off that to 1. Thanks to the Brand Bronzebeard, that Abusive permits the Haunted Creeper to clear off the Doomsayer very nicely. Keeps the board presence. Here comes the Wild Pyromancer Consecrate we talked about. Able to deal with most of the board. Not all of it, as I explained my error on that just a little bit ago. So Sudaka, even after that quote-unquote clear, still has a pretty good board. Really nice trade into the Wild Pyromancer. He's going to start with a tap, though. Looks like he is going to take the value trade here. Makes complete sense. The Flame Imp does get the effect of the brand, but unfortunately it's a negative effect, so generally don't want to do that if you can avoid it, unless you just really want the pressure out there. The Void Terror is what he's debating on right now. I would be willing to bet. Deciding on if he wants to play it and where he wants to play it. He is going to destroy the brand so that now he can play the Flame Imp. So he buffs that up just a tad into a 5/4. Removes the brand effect off the board, so the Flame Imp will only do 3 damage. Maintains a really nice board presence here. And Arusu's going to have to start getting into some more clears. He has the other Consecrate, but that doesn't get rid of a whole lot of pressure. This Aldor seems to be a better answer. He could have done both, or he still can. Looks like he's going to Aldor down that Void Terror and start using these Murlocs to clear and make some value for his Anything Can Happen. That's the first Murloc to die for him, if I'm not mistaken. So he's going to have to start drawing into those Murlocs if he wants to prevent that Anything Can Happen from becoming just a 2-1. Meanwhile, back down here with Sudaka, he would have had a lot of damage in hand had the Aldor Peacekeeper not come out. He would have had enough for lethal. But alas, that is not the case. So he's going to trade here. It looks like he's going to allow the Doomsayer to go. Oh, he's okay. So it's going to be buffed by the wolf. So that's what that will allow it to kill it. Okay, there we go. That makes sense. I was a step behind. He played it perfectly, buffing the Doom Guard with the Direwolf Alpha, allowing him to finish off the Doomsayer. He does have to discard the Abusive, but not the end of the world. And now Arusu with a kind of awkward hand. He does have the Lay on Hands. It will heal him up and allow him to draw a couple cards, but he's going to be taking all of this board damage to the face again. On the other hand, he could Consecrate, which would clear 8 damage from the board. Or 9 damage from the board if you include the 1/1 on the end. I was including the Direwolf Alpha, but I wasn't including the 1/1. So anyway, it does clear 9 damage from the board. So now Sudaka's going to start with the tap, and this looks like a really good turn from him. The double Imp Gang boss, if he wants to play it. But he's got to be sensing some sort of AoE clear coming up soon from Arusu. So he may or may not throw both of them out, depending on what he thinks Arusu has in hand. If he wants to go all in on it. He does decide to go all in. Figures Arusu only has 4 cards in hand. And if he's got an answer to this, then so be it. He does not. The Lay on Hand's going to heal him up and help him stabilize just a tad. Drawing into that Sludge Belcher could be huge. Sudaka not running out of minions, though. He gets the Loatheb and taps into the Dark Iron Dwarf. Only able to play 1 this turn. Opts for the Loatheb. It locks out the Anything Can Happen, but as we stated earlier, the Anything is not too great, so that Loatheb just on there mostly for the board presence, not to lock out any spells, really. Still a very strong minion on the board. It kills the Sludge Belcher very nicely if that's what he wants to do with it. It appears he is going to take that trade, and we'll see how full he wants to make his board. He's going to trade in the Imp Gang boss produce another 1/1. And we'll see how he wants to deal with these. He is going to use the Dark Iron Dwarf to trade in here. So he's going to leave one space open on his board if he wants to. He can throw out one of these minions. But it would prevent minions from coming out of the Imp Gang boss. So let's see if he if that's something that he cares about or not. Big decision. Do I take the board presence? I don't think you do here, so I agree with his decision to hold because you have a lot of damage on board and your opponent is already down to 9. So even if you have a board clear, you want to have a little bit of something to back it up with to finish off your opponent. And Arusu forced to Solemn Vigil, see if he can draw some sort of out. Doesn't look like either of those minions is gonna do it. He can keep her in humility. Is that enough to keep him alive? It would reduce 7 damage or 6 damage off the board, and he doesn't see an out, and I didn't either. So Sudaka gonna go ahead and take game 2. So the Warlocks are undefeated, both getting victories on their first try. So the Warlock class is now locked out for the rest of the entire tournament. They will not be. Nobody will play Warlock for the rest of the tournament. I can promise you that. And now we will go in to game 3, and we will see what classes they opt with. Now, we'll see if they both go with their Paladin. We could have a Paladin class mirror match, but they are different. They have different strategies, so that could be interesting to see that occur. Or they could also switch to their different decks. Druid and Hunter, respectively. So here we go. We're going to find out right now. Game 3 coming at you. They do both decide to switch to their Hunter and Druid, so Paladin is out for now. Neither player too pleased with their Paladin's performance in this match. So they're both going to try something new here. See who can squeak out a win. Sudaka's Hunter, we saw earlier, is the more aggressive style. Arusu's Druid looks like the mid-range variation. So we'll see if he can draw some smaller minions. I assume he'll be throwing back some of those larger ones to hold off the pressure from Sudaka. You generally expect Hunter to try to kill you fairly quickly, so you want to have some early game presence against them. It's generally pretty risky to hold on to those big minions. But we'll see what he decides to do. Perhaps he's got a plan. If he can draw onto an Innervate, those can be super strong. He is going to throw back his whole hand, it appeared. He does pick up the Wrath in the swipe that he can use for removal here early on. Sudaka has the Knife Juggler, which could be answered pretty nicely by that Wrath. But for turn 1, unless he wants to coin something out like a hero power, I imagine he'll just be passing it back. He does. Sudaka here has the Knife Juggler if he wants to play it, but if he's afraid of Wrath, he may just invest in the hero power here. He's going to throw out the Knife Juggler. Even though Arusu does have Wrath here, it pretty much forces him to use that Wrath in this situation and prevents him from establishing a board of his own. So Sudaka will be free to take initiative on board again with either the Wolf Rider or the Eagle Horn Bow, deciding on what he wants to use. The Wolf Rider entices a hero power if that's the path he wants to go with. He's going to go with the Worgen Infiltrator, set up the stealth, and invest in that hero power that we talked about. So definitely very viable. Start using that super strong hero power to damage your opponent. Arusu just stuck with the hero power again here. Didn't want to coin out the swipe. He has an insane combo already. with the Force of Nature double Savage Roar. If he can withstand this this pressure long enough to get an Emperor discount, or even just survive until turn 8 now, thanks to the coin, he's gonna have a lot of damage coming in later turns. So he's gonna use the coin now though. Seems to make a whole lot of sense. Set up the taunt, slow down the game a little bit. Force Sudaka to have an answer for it. He does have the Owl. And the Owl is a beast, so now the kill command hits for 5 if he wants to use that play. Not saying he should, just throwing the option out there. He's going to go with the bow instead, having the Mad Scientist on board already, so he can use that to pull out a secret in the upcoming turns, assuming no silence from Arusu. Now that the Owl has been used, though, this Innervate Ancient of War is going to be a lot stronger. And Arusu going to take the value trade on the Owl as well. So now he's clearing off the beast synergy, I imagine is why he made that trade, so it makes a whole lot of sense. So now Sudaka, that kill command, unless he pairs it with the Unleash the Hounds, not able to get the 5 damage capability. So this is quite the wall Arusu has now that Sudaka's got to sink a lot of damage into that he really doesn't want to. He is going to pair Unleash the Hounds with the kill command, will allow him to get through the taunt this turn, despite deciding on how he wants to do it. He does not have to use the weapon if he doesn't want to. He can use that, pull out the secret, and then attempt to get the secret procced next turn. So that way he gets another charge on the bow. So this is an explosive trap. So he's probably expecting his opponent to trade, and therefore will not be getting the value from the weapon, or from the secret buffing the durability of the weapon next turn. This swipe, though, could be pretty strong. So Arusu does proc the trap. He may or may not have if the bow was still active, but he does proc it. So because he can now swipe this, clear out the board very nicely. And Arusu can even do more damage to the face, so they're both at a fairly equal life total. Sudaka still hit with a decent amount of burst, especially with that hero power. That's 9 damage in hand over a couple turns. And with that hero power over those same 2 turns, that's a lot of damage coming at him. So we'll see if Sudaka wants to use the quick shot here to clear off the minion on board, or if he wants to hold it to be to draw a card with potentially next turn. Because if it's the only card in your hand, you can draw a card with it. But if he's able to use it to clear off this Druid of the Claw, it forces Arusu to have another answer to this Druid of the Claw. And a hero power would be great for Sudaka if that's the way it has to go down. And it would also prevent the Dr. Boom from coming out. So, obviously he does not know that portion. That's just the benefit that we have. So looks like he is going to attack face with the Wolf Rider. And he's going to hold the quick shot, going to allow Arusu to trade that off should he want to. Arusu, feeling the pressure, going to use the heal from this Ancient of Lore. He's got quite a bit of value in his hand, so he didn't really need to use it to draw cards, especially with the pressure that Sudaka was putting on. So makes complete sense. Sudaka picking up the next weapon, though, is going to be able to put on a lot of damage this turn. So paired with that hero power that we've talked about, the weapon and the quick shot is enough for lethal, even if Arusu hero powers. And Arusu does not have the mana to combo or the heals to survive next turn or a taunt, so he may not know it yet, but because with the hero power, technically he's alive to the weapon and the hero power as long as he clears the Wolf Rider. He's not dead on board. We know the quick shot will disrupt that. So we'll see what he decides to play out here. Maybe he can draw into a taunt. He does not. The Big Game Hunter not going to be the answer. He is going to go ahead and go up to 6 because he has to, otherwise he's dead on board. But this quick shot, along with this kill command, might have been enough. Anyway, if he gets Huffer out of it, he would have been able to kill him as well. Doesn't need it. The quick shot's going to go ahead and finish it off. So Sudaka going up 2-1. He gets the victory with his Hunter. So now he is just left with his Paladin, his Secret Paladin. Arusu was running the Murloc Paladin. So we're just left with his Secret Paladin, and Arusu can go with his Druid again, or he still has his Paladin. We're going to find out right now what they decide to go with. Arusu sticking with the Druid. Sudaka, as we stated, got the Paladin. Let's go ahead and give the Hunter a check mark. And that puts Sudaka 1 win away from victory and taking the series here. We'll see if he can close it out in this game, or if Arusu, in his comeback fashion that we saw in his last series, if he's able to pull it back yet again. So now both taking their time, deciding what they want to use, perhaps waiting for the other opponent to mulligan first to try to get a little bit of information on what their opponent's hand may or may not be. Sudaka, I would guess, is going to keep the Secret Keeper and the Haunted Creeper. Toss back the other two. He does have the coin, though, so he may hold on to the Shredder, so he can go 1-2, coin 4. Seems pretty good. Arusu with the Innervate is going to go ahead and keep that. He does draw the Wild Growth, which is good for him. Will allow him to curve into these bigger minions that he's got. Hopefully coming up here. He could Innervate out the Shade now, and it will still allow him to Wild Growth the turn after that. He's just going to pass it back, though. And now Sudaka has a couple options here. So we'll see if he wants to Secret Keeper and buff it, or he can just throw out the Haunted Creeper. All viable options. It's just a matter of preference at this point. He's flirting with that coin just a little bit. So I would be inclined to guess that he's going to use 2 mana of some sort. Nope, he's not. He's just going to throw the Secret Keeper out there. I suppose this makes sense because the Secret Keeper dies to Wrath whether he buffs it or not. So he's just going to hold that secret. Arusu going to use the Wild Growth. Going to help him ramp into those later turns. Sudaka, now that his Keeper is alive, he's got some options here. He's going to go with the Coin Muster for battle. Seems to be pretty good. Puts on a lot of pressure. We are going into turn 4 for Arusu, so a swipe is possible, but it would not kill the Secret Keeper. Now a kind of awkward turn for him. He's got the Keeper of the Grove is on curve. He can use that to kill the Secret Keeper. Or he could Innervate out the Druid of the Claw if he wanted to. He's going to go with the Keeper of the Grove. Makes sense. Kill that off before it can get buffed. And now Sudaka does not have the Coin Shredder since he used it last turn that we talked about earlier. But he still has options. He's got the Creeper, along with some secrets here. He may have made the small read that his opponent does not have Swipe. Because he's playing into Swipe just a little bit. Of course, Arusu does not know that what this secret is, so we get the advantage of that. It is a competitive spirit and not the noble sacrifice. We saw it played from hand. So Arusu could have traded into the Creeper and swiped if he had it. So that's what I meant by playing into Swipe. So Arusu has narrowed it down. It is not Noble Sacrifice or Avenge or Redemption. So he's probably got a pretty good idea that it is Competitive Spirit. Now he knows it is Competitive Spirit since it was not Repentance. So he's going to use the hero power here to make that only go off on these 2 minions. So Competitive Spirit getting a decent amount of value there. Now Sudaka has got the Piloted Shredder. He is going to throw that down. Looks like he's going to trade in to keep his entire board alive. He's going to use the Haunted Creeper. Makes a lot of sense. And now Arusu with 6 mana is kind of awkward. Does he innervate out the Ancient of Lore, or he looks like he's going to innervate out the Druid of the Claw and the Shade of Naxxramas, so that looks pretty good if you ask me. He's going to take the value trade there as well. A Consecrate here would be really good. He does not draw it. He is going to want to deal with that Shade before it gets big again. So I'd imagine this trade coming in from the Creeper so that he can weapon down that Shade. Leave Arusu with just the most recent Shade that is still stealthed. And we'll see what he wants to back it up with. He's drawn into a lot of his secrets, so even if he top decks the Mysterious Challenger, he's got most of those secrets in hand, and he's already played the Competitive Spirits, so if he doesn't play secrets now, a Mysterious Challenger would only pull out a Noble Sacrifice and an Avenge, where he can put them all up now. Seems to be pretty good. Why not? He's got a nice little board going up there, so if he can kind of slow down Arusu, force him to navigate through these secrets. Arusu's already seen the Competitive Spirit, so he probably knows what these 3 are. And as such, will allow him to play around them a little bit more if he wants to. He's debating on dropping this Ancient of Lore. He doesn't feel threatened by this board. It's not going to be buffed by Competitive Spirit. He's banking on your opponent not running 2 Competitive Spirits, which is usually a safe gamble. But if you think they have it, you can go with the Force of Nature clear. So he is going to do that. Not going to be able to quite clear the entire board because of the Noble Sacrifice. But he will be able to pick off most of it. Gets the Redemption to go off on the Noble Sacrifice. And then he's going to use the rest of this Force of Nature to clear off the board as best he can. It does leave good trades for Sudaka to clear off the Shade and establish the mini-bot and hero power if he wants to. Or he could have pressured to the face. Both would have been viable. Looks like he is going to take the trade. Seems like the smart play there. Arusu playing the Piloted Shredder into the Repentance, which is why he did not use the Ancient of Lore last turn. Did not want that getting Repentanced. So really strong play for him, navigating those secrets. Sudaka gonna see what's behind door number 1. Establish his own mini-bot, because that's about all he has right now until next turn where he can drop the Tyrion. Arusu can take some value trades here, set up his Ancient of War, which was really annoying for Sudoka last game, but he was still able to overcome it and get the victory through the Ancient of War with his Hunter. So Arusu just going to establish the Ancient of Lore, draw a couple cards, use the hero power to pop off the Divine Shield, or see where he decides to go. He does take the value trade, so he wants to keep his minion alive, values that going forward.
Put your faith in the light.
Sudaka undoubtedly throws out the Tyrion to nobody's surprise. He takes the value trade there, so good work from Arusu, forcing his opponent to take those value trades, getting more out of his minion. Arusu now looks like he's going with the Savage Roar. He could use that with paired with the Living Roots to clear the Tyrion. Use the Living Roots to pop off the Divine Shield. And the Ancient of Lore to clear it off if he wants to. You could also start with the Wild Growth to draw a card. Nope, he's just going to go straight in with the Savage Roar. Oh, he's going to clear it off with his face. He's going to take 6 damage to the face. Set up the Ancient of Lore to slow down Sudaka and that weapon. Coghammer, not a good draw here. Kind of in a similar situation he was in a previous game. Not wanting to override the weapon. Ashbringer is the name of that weapon, by the way. I keep calling it just a weapon, but it's an Ashbringer. So now Arusu going to start with his Azure Drake. See what he can pick up off of that. He draws into a Keeper of the Grove. He could use that to peg off the mini-bot if he wants to. That appears to be the play he's going for. He doesn't have enough to hero power on the backside of this. So he's just going to go face with the Ancient of Lore and force Sudaka to clear off the Ancient of War. Deciding if he wants to do that with the Lotheb or the Ashbringer. He doesn't seem like the most optimal play, but if he wanted to, he could have tried to get the Coghammer to land on the Lotheb, but that would have been overridden his weapon. So now he's gonna do it. Now that he's cleared the board after that, so he cleared the Ancient of Lore first, got more value out of the Ashbringer, and now making sure that the Divine Shield taunt buff from the Coghammer lands on the Lotheb. So that was sequenced very nicely, if you ask me. Able to establish the taunt to get in the way of combo if your opponent has it. We know that he does not. He doesn't actually have any pieces of the combo. The swipe here is going to be used to clear off most of the Lotheb. We'll decide, see if he wants to use what method he wants to use to clear off this Lotheb. He's got a couple of them. The Living Roots seems like the most beneficial. He can also set up the Druid of the Claw on the back side of this. That happens sometimes where it keeps it up for a little bit longer, but it usually goes away. There it goes. He's going to take the value trades here, and now Arusu has the commanding board presence. Keeper of the Grove, not the worst here. He can use it to nerf the Druid of the Claw, but it will not help him survive, so I guess it is not a good enough draw here because he will be dead either way. Just realized how low Sudaka had gotten, and now Arusu taking game 4, going to even up the series, and we are going to yet another game 5. We'll see if Arusu can complete the comeback. It wasn't quite as big of a comeback as he had to overcome in his last series, but he was still down 2-1, and now he's able to even it up 2 games apiece. So we will go to game 5 between these two phenomenal players, both playing super well throughout this entire tournament and are not disappointing us here in the finals. So both players know exactly what classes they have to use, so I imagine they'll be starting here fairly quickly, unless they just want to take a quick personal break to kind of gather themselves and come up with a little bit of a plan here on what they want to do in this next game. Because this is the one that matters. One game to rule them all. Whoever wins this individual game will be the Elephino Open number 10 champion. And we'll go home with a little bit more money and one more point in the standings, the BlizzCon standings. So here we go. They are ready to go. Let me get you guys into this action. We will give the Druid his checkmark. So we finally get to see that Paladin mirror match that I was talking about earlier. Sudaka on his secret Paladin we just saw. Arusu on his Murloc Paladin we've seen previously. in his last series and earlier in this series. So we'll see which one can prevail. Sudaka's got a pretty good start here. He doesn't have the coin, but he has the 1-drop and the secret if he wants to keep it. Or he can decide to toss it back and go for the 1-drop and the secret keeper. Or generally you toss back your secrets anyway because you want to pull them out with Mysterious Challenger. But Avenge is one of your secrets that you generally run 2 of. So I suppose if you're going to keep one so that you have something to play on turn 1, you could make the argument for keeping one of those. If you're going to play out Knife Juggler on turn 2, Noble Sacrifice is generally the better option. Protects your Knife Juggler a little bit better. We'll see what he decides to do here. He is going to keep the whole hand. So now he can toss out that Avenge here on turn 1 if he wants to. Or he can hold it. Forces Arusu to play around it. So he would have to expect the Noble Sacrifice. Could protect his Knife Juggler regardless, just the fear of Noble Sacrifice. Could be enough to protect your minion next turn if that's what you decide to play. Arusu, meanwhile, not having much of a turn unless he wants to coin out his hero power. He does not, so he's just going to send it back down to Sudaka, who now has to decide which one of these really nice 2-drops he wants to play. What a rough life he's having right now. Which good minion do I play? He's going to go with the Creeper because of how nicely it trades with Arusu's hero power. He saw that he didn't have a turn last turn on 1, so he was hoping that all he would have to do was hero power. And this was the best option to clear off that hero power, aside from the Knife Juggler sniping a juggle on it. It still potentially could if he wants to do the Knife Juggler Secret Keeper. That's an option. See if he can nail the juggle. If not, he has the Haunted Creeper to clear it up as a contingency plan. Looks like he's just going to throw out the shielded mini-bot instead of the Juggler and the Secret Keeper. He's going to take the trade we talked about with the Creeper, not wanting to rely on the Knife Juggler to get that. Especially since this would have been a coin consecrate turn, which we see that Arusu does not have, but played around that a little bit by using the mini-bot instead of the Knife Juggler. So now Arusu going to put out the Doomsayer, but unfortunately for him, Sudaka has the Blessing of Kings, so he's able to deal with that pretty efficiently. Puts a Blessing of Kings on a minion with Divine Shield. That's going to be countered by the Aldor Peacekeeper, though, to nerf that back down. And now Sudaka has a couple options. See how he wants to navigate this. One potential play would be the Knife Juggler, and you could try to see where those Creeper Juggles are headed, but that does play into Consecrate a little bit, so if he's afraid of that, he might not do it, but he is going to throw out the Juggler there. Start with a hero power. He does get that one to land. Throw out the Secret Keeper as well. He gets that one to land in addition. So now the debate on what he wants to use to kill that off. The Divine Shield seems to make the most sense. He can keep his board alive that way. And is a little bit resilient to Consecrate. Thanks to the 1/1s from the Haunted Creeper. Gonna stay alive. Arusu still does not have it, so this board gonna continue to get a lot of value. And Arusu just gonna try to cycle through his deck a little bit more. Just gonna use that Solemn Vigil as opposed to healing up, because he only would have gotten 3 heal out of the heal bot. So he's gonna pass on that. He's still playing around the Noble Sacrifice would be my guess for not using the True Silver there, potentially. He may have had another plan. But it could have discouraged him from trying to True Silver down the Knife Juggler. Now Arusu here with a full hand, gonna have to play something. He's got that Sludge Belcher, seems like not the worst option. So many options here. This could be this is a very important play for Arusu, so he's gonna want to make sure he takes his time and figures out what this secret is correctly. He's gonna throw out the Sludge Belcher and just pass it back. Doesn't need to use the coin for anything. Sudaka with a full board. If he wants to play anything else, he's gonna have to trade some minions into that Sludge Belcher first. Probably part of his plan anyway. He's got a lot of little minions that he can start to cash in if he wants to. Hasn't drawn any secrets since the beginning to buff those Secret Keepers. So those have been kept down to a very small size so far in this game. Gonna start with this, see if he can get the juggle. He does get the juggle. So that juggler was spot on there. Now decide how he wants to deal with this slime. He is gonna cash in one of his minions so he can play another one from hand, would be my guess. See if he wants to toss that out first, see if the juggle can come through for him again. It does not a big deal. He's got a couple other minions he can use to trade in. He's going to use the 1/6 mini bot. Makes the most sense to me, keeps the other ones healthy. Go face with the rest. And now Arusu gonna have to try to navigate a way out of this. Even if he does have a, even if he did have a board clear, Sudaka's board is pretty resilient to it with the Haunted Creeper and the piloted Shredder. He could coin into a Lay on Hands, but that would heal him. He could also do the anti-heal bot if he wants the same amount of heal. So that would make a little bit more sense there. He's debating on the heal bot, seeing if it's enough to keep him around for a couple more turns and help him stabilize. He's also going to coin out the Aldor to nerf that piloted Shredder and try to slowly come back on board here. The Consecrate, I don't believe, is enough damage. We've got 10 damage on board, so that'd only be to 12. He could use it to make the trades much more efficient for him, so he is going to toss it out there. He can now use a couple of these smaller minions to clean up the board if he wants to. He doesn't have any. He has the one beast, I should say, to buff the Scavenging Hyena because the Haunted Creeper is a beast, so he can buff that later on if he wants to by killing the Haunted Creepers that he now has on board. So that's kind of some interesting synergy coming out from the Shredder. Now Arusu being set down to 7. He's gonna need an answer. The Lay on Hands will help him survive another turn. Sudaka is down to 10 damage on board. So Arusu is going to go with the Lay on Hands. Draw into a couple more cards, see what he can cycle into. That does put him up to 10 cards though, so he will be overdrawing a card next turn. So we'll see if that becomes a factor or not. Sudaka picks up the Dr. Boom, but it's irrelevant because he can't play anything this turn since his board is completely full.
My hand is too full.
So Arusu, discarding an anything can happen. That's unfortunate for him. I don't think it would have mattered. This game appears to be pretty out of reach for Arusu, but I will not be counting him out yet. Perhaps he can work some magic. He has the other Lay on Hands, but he will be discarding a lot of cards if he does so. But if he thinks that's his best way to stay alive, he may have to do it. He could go with the second Sludge Belcher try to use a True Silver to clean up some of these shenanigans going down on the opposite side of the board. He's also got the Murloc you could use to trade in.
Must move quickly.
I don't know that he's 100% sure which secret this is. I believe Sudaka's been doing all the trading. So I don't think Rusu knows whether this is Noble Sacrifice or Avenge yet. He might have. It's been a long time. He probably knows by now. I just can't remember off the top of my head. He definitely knows now. Even if it was Noble Sacrifice, he could have used it to trade into the Juggler without fear of it dying, because the Noble Sacrifice would not have procced there because Sudaka had a full board. So that, even if Arusu wasn't 100% sure due to testing, he would have been more sure that it was Avenge due to the fact that Sudaka had a full board, and he would have prevented his own Noble Sacrifice from going off that way. This appears to be a lot of damage here, and Arusu sees the writing on the wall, so he is going to go ahead and concede that over. And Sudaka going to get the victory with the Paladin. That was a very hard-fought series from both players. Very well played, very impressive, very nice sequencing on multiple occasions by both players. So really impressive. We want to thank them for both playing. We'll congratulate Sudaka for being the Elephino Open number 10 champion. He's going to go ahead and take home $15 and 3 points. The more important part being the points in the World Championship standings that will help him get into those qualifiers. Coming up, the next one's coming up fairly soon. In February here, I believe the Americas region one begins on February 20th, if you're looking into that. So keep an eye out for that. You can see like all the great players, or most of the great players in that will be in that tournament. So a lot of high skill coming up in that. So keep an eye out for that. Let me go ahead and throw out a thank you to Strivewire, whose logo you can see on the screen here. They are Strivewire.com is a website that hosts a lot of open Hearthstone tournaments for both the American region and the European regions. So whether you're in either of them, you could definitely check out Strivewire and get involved in some open tournaments of your own, and you could be the next Elephino Open champion. The next one, number 11, will be next Sunday. So keep an eye out for that. The stream will take place on my Twitch channel, Elephino HS, so you can see on the screen, as well as Firebat's channel, which is twitch.tv/hero_Firebat. So you can watch the next Elephino Open at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time next Sunday, February 14th, on either of those channels. The VODs will be on my YouTube channel, so you can check out this one. I will be updating it in the next couple of days on YouTube. So just go on YouTube and do a quick search for Elephino Open. And if you don't mind dropping me a sub on there, that would be great. And check out some of the previous Elephino Opens. But that'll do it for us. One last quick thank you to Strivewire, all the players in the tournament, Firebat for allowing me to cast this on your channel as well. He was unfortunately unable to make it to help cast this week, but that's okay. Maybe we'll get him back in the next couple of weeks. But that'll do it for us today. So thank you for watching, and have a good one.